you're moving from place to place, place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers. It is 7 a.m. on Tuesday, the 6th of December, 2022. Officially 1 year since the Tobago House of Assembly election that took place in 2021. Welcome to the Tobago Updates morning show as we continue to give God thanks. I am Julian Skeet.
And I am Ria Richardson George, and this is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad. Those of you viewing us on the live and in the Caribbean, or the Caribbean and on the live, yeah. Good morning to you.
Yes. Good morning to each and every one of you, Ria. And it's that kind of morning in the Tobago space. It's that kind of morning in the Tobago space where there are many questions.
Okay, good. Right. That was a good start. I was just about to ask, what kind of morning is it? Because I'll tell you, there's someone who was saying that they're surprised, so someone was saying that they're not surprised. But certainly, one would have hoped for better, Julian.
What was your reaction, Ria, when you saw, or just so that we inform our viewers immediately,
what we're talking about,
for those who are far and wide, who have not yet seen it via social media, we have seen the official resignation of all members of the Progressive Democratic Patriots that currently operate within the Tobago House of Assembly, with the exception of Watson Duke, tendering their resignation from the Progressive Democratic Patriots. So from the political party, they have tendered their resignation and continue to function within the structure of the Tobago House of Assembly. So that's that's the hot topic, so to speak, in Tobago from yesterday, I think just around the morning time when the news broke about this change.
Yeah. So I was a bit surprised. I felt as though even if they wanted to, they could have waited until the 1 year mark. I'm saying it was just a day away. Wait until the 1 year mark. Of course, the saga continues with regards to the leadership of the party, the political leader as against the chief secretary, and you know it's just. We hoped for better. It's a very young administration. We understand that, very new to politics. We understood all of these things, but we hoped for better.
Very interesting indeed. I was not at all surprised. We operate within a setting where
the timing, Julian, I think most of the timing, the timing didn't surprise you either.
I'm not at all surprised. And I'm not surprised because of the simple fact of things have been heading in a particular direction.
Understood.
And you were seeing very little signs of return. Here it is, the political leader charged and would continuously tell you to get out.
So they got out.
And yes, said it in no uncertain terms. And they took the option to get out. The question is, for many, in anticipation of what happens in terms of the way forward. Some concerns have been raised in relation to the Tobago House of Assembly. I believe that the Tobago House of the legality, and so I believe, however, the Tobago House of Assembly Act is very clear. In these circumstances, but I also anticipate naturally, in listening to the political leader Watson Duke's live last night, that he will be seeking legal, in terms of, and I also anticipated that move does not surprise me either under the circumstances. And one would say the progression naturally, it was either you stay within the fold. And continue, and you probably try to work it out under the circumstances, and if heads continue to butt, you may eventually have to part ways. The part ways came sooner. But some question, and only time will tell in terms of how this will ultimately work out, because in the political space, clearly there are risks being taken. And under the circumstances, you have to accept what will be the consequences that will come with these kinds of risks that may be taken under the circumstances. And so we look on to see how things develop in time to come.
Yeah, and what we've seen within the last year, Julian, is a very different set of dynamics with regards to the THA Act. We've not seen we've never walked this road before. So we saw a 6-6 Now all of this, the Tobago House of Assembly has never faced these
Yes.
scenarios.
You know, it's really unprecedented times
Yeah.
that we are seeing in the THA. But I think one of the things that stands out to me, you know, has been that interesting point always made by Huchoy Charles as our first chief secretary, that the ultimate intention of the, you know, the Tobago House of Assembly Act, the party politicking basically is done with by the time you are elected as an assemblyman. And the assemblymen now have responsibility for the governing and the operations of the House. Very interesting. And perhaps I should also mention part of why I'm not surprised at all is we utilize this very similar model with our youth assembly just a few years ago, where it is youth assemblymen by virtue of being governed by the same Tobago House of Assembly Act. We elected all as independents, no party mechanisms. And I'm happy that, if for nothing else, we get to show our young people, let's see how this pans out in the actual Tobago House of Assembly operations.
Right.
Within the broader scope of things. And interesting enough, one of the persons that would have been a critical player in that, in her time as presiding officer, is Dr. Denise Sawyer Fatangas, and we've got her on this morning. So we look forward to these kinds of discussions as we now speak to looking at the full operations and the flow of the Tobago House of Assembly, particularly in these times that appear to be very much, you know, unprecedented. All right, viewers and listeners, we head on over to news in 90 seconds.
Thank you, Julian and Ria. I am Candice Jackson, and here is your news in 90 seconds for Tuesday, 6 December 2022. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine and the entire Executive Council resigned from the Progressive Democratic Patriots effective December 1st. In a resignation letter addressed to political leader Watson Duke, Augustine said he and his colleagues in the Assembly took their collective decision to resign from the party but remained focused on serving the people of Tobago as independents. In response, Duke said, quote, Fali and friends, end quote, did the honorable thing by resigning from the party. He criticized them for ambushing the PDP and not executing the mandate they campaigned on. Additionally, Duke threatened to take Augustine and company to court for fresh elections. Meanwhile, the political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Ansel Dennis, supported a call for new elections. Dennis said Tobagonians voted the PDP into the THA and not individuals. Adding his voice, Minority Leader Kelvin Morris said the first anniversary is tainted by resignations indicating that the THA has collapsed under the leadership of Fali Augustine. He also believed they failed the people of Tobago and should not continue in office. However, geopolitical scientist Dr. Shane Mohammed commended Augustine and the Executive Council for divorcing themselves from the PDP. He noted that with the party drama behind them, they can now focus on serving Tobagonians to the best of their ability. And nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley retained his position as political leader of the PNM. The party hosted its internal elections over the weekend, and Dr. Rowley garnered 92% of the votes. His challenger, Karen Nunez Teixeira, captured 4% of the votes. However, the voter turnout was low. Chairman of the Election Supervisory Committee, Anthony Roberts, revealed that less than 10% of members cast their ballots. And that was the news in 90 seconds. It is back to you, Julian and Ria.
Thank you,
very much
Candice.
there. Thank you very much there, Candice. And Ria, that's the other part of the development that has happened there. Very interesting when I saw the outcome with, I think, just about 92% or so of the People's National Movement supporting Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley to continue as political leader in the People's National Movement. So you see how we operate as a people with politics. You may complain left, right, up and down.
But at the end of the day, you have confidence that he, you know, the members of the party have confidence that he is the best person to continue to take the party forward. Better the one you have than the one you don't know.
Very, very interesting terminology there, Ria. As we head straight on into our birthday celebrations today, celebrating some birthdays today. And who do we get started with this morning for our birthday celebrations? All right, on screen, we get started this morning with Harmony Frederick. Harmony Frederick, we want to wish you a happy birthday. And this comes from your brother Richard Frederick, Vernry Simon Frederick, the entire family, Regan, Riesel, Venicia, and the entire Frederick family out there wishing you a happy birthday, Harmony.
And from my family as well, happy birthday to you, Harmony. Love going out to you.
We have on screen now Carolyn Phillips, and we are saying morning, and happy birthday going out to you, Carolyn Phillips. Wishing you an enjoyable day today.
Yeah, special one too.
Khadija Tobias. This morning we're taking some time out to ensure and wish you a happy birthday. Give your birthday shout out, and we trust that you will continue to enjoy the celebrations. Valine Gordon, it's your day. And you know, Valine is big on birthdays, so I know she's going to make sure and enjoy this celebration.
Happy birthday, Valine.
We want to wish you a happy birthday and God's continued blessings. Freya, do you see this beauty in yellow? This beauty in yellow, yes. Nikaisha Legaton. All right, this morning we're sending birthday shout-outs to Nikaisha Legaton. Want to wish you a happy birthday, and we trust that you continue to enjoy the celebrations.
All right, and we've got Alana Sukia celebrating her birthday. Alana, love going out to you. Happy birthday to you this morning from all of us here at Tobago Updates. Katie and Moore celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday going out to you, Katie and Moore. And lots of love. And that's Murnell Phillips celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday going out to you, Murnell. And we trust that you have a really great one from all of us here at Tobago Updates. Lizanne Henry celebrating her birthday. Happy birthday going out to you this morning, Lizanne. Have a great one. Trust that you enjoy it to the max.
Happy birthday going out to Roxana Hall.
And to Roxy.
Yes, we're wishing you a happy birthday and God's continued blessings. We trust that you take some time out to enjoy those celebrations today.
Definitely. From the Cinnamon Hill Wesleyan Holiness Church and all of us, happy birthday going out to you, Auntie Roxy. And Nadine Hackett celebrating her birthday. Nadine, love going out to you this morning from all of us here at Tobago Updates.
Yes, and I want to say happy birthday going out to you as well, Nadine Hackett. Trust that you continue to enjoy the celebrations. Ria, interesting day ahead. As I started off by indicating in the earlier conversation, this morning we will be having discussions with Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, former presiding officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. And we'll be speaking about the mass resignation from the PDP. We'll also be speaking to misbehaving and conduct in the House. And 1 year later, let's get the feel and perspective of our former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus.
All right. So I think we should head over
on the rundown this morning.
Very interesting. We are going to be chatting this morning with a daughter of the soil who now lives in DC, but it's all about her book. All right. So she's here this morning to chat with us on her book, her recent write. And this is Anne-Marie James Henry, a daughter of Signal Hill, Tobago. All right, and her book is When Love Calls You Home. She'll chat with us a little bit more on that.
And you know, this morning I also wanted to take the opportunity, very interesting, to send, the perspective raised by the political leader of the Tobago Council, Ansel Dennis, in his comments. And if I heard clearly, I found it a very mature move in the fact that he challenged and, of course, raised serious concerns with regards to the mass resignation and not being fair to the people of Tobago. But in the interview that I heard, it was either via social media or the news, he was also honest enough to put forward, which really shows a sense of maturity, that ultimately there's nothing illegal about it, in the sense that the Tobago, there's nothing wrong in the context of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. And I found that very interesting. So he did give his perspective, he did communicate his challenges with it, the unfair nature to the people of Tobago, and yes, of course, that there should be a return to the polls. But he went one step further to indicate, based on the letter of the law, it can actually happen in the context of the Tobago House of Assembly. But there were broader issues and concerns For which, obviously, his point returned to the fact of, there should be a fresh mandate in terms of fresh elections, which is also a call that we saw coming from the political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. So it's very interesting times ahead, and we look forward to the many perspectives that will certainly come forth on this matter in terms of moving forward, and perhaps even the legal challenge that will also come forth on this matter.
All right, and we also hear views from Attorney at Law Martin George. We hear views as well from UWI political scientist Dr. Bishnu Raghunath on the issue. So we're going to be getting different perspectives, probably not on updates this morning, but certainly different perspectives throughout the day.
All right, most certainly. Viewers, at this point, we want to thank each and every one of you for continuing to choose the Tobago Updates morning show and continuing to select us as your #1 choice. Thanks to all our viewers, listeners, and to those of you joining us online. This is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up below. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Spread Christmas joy and cheer with a loan from Lambo Credit Union this year. Get 100% financing for shopping, home renovations, furniture and appliances, debt consolidation and much more. Did we mention no payments until the end of January 2023? Get the most flexible repayment periods and the best interest rates around. Call 639-5060 to book your appointment today, or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Wishing you a happy holiday from Lambo Credit Union. And remember, we are always here for you.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash and transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Was a while before Christmas, and all through the land, people was putting away house with very little money in hand. They was painting and cleaning and doing their chores, but I went to hunt for deals at American stores. Deals on living and dining room sets, on fridges and stoves, beds and cabinets, on washers and dryers, small appliances cheap, even TVs and stereos, prices just can't be beat. So let's Christmas together at American stores. After all, what they tell me, anything could be yours.
Anything can be yours at American stores.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Good morning, viewers. It's 7:20 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough. Viewers, in this segment, interesting times ahead. And we have on set with us Dr. Denise Sawyerfat Angus, former presiding officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you and good morning
to the people of Tobago, and season's greetings to you.
So when we have these kinds of topical moments, these I want to say unprecedented times, very interesting times ahead. Yesterday we saw what is obviously being described as the mass resignation of a number of persons from the Progressive Democratic Patriots, and of course all members of the Tobago House of Assembly, with the exception of Watson Duke, who previously would have gone on a PDP ticket to enter the administration, becoming assemblymen and becoming members of the Tobago House of Assembly. Your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts. Why don't we all get along? It is unfortunate. It is unfortunate for the people of Tobago because, to see all this playing out, it's reminding them of where they came from and what they choose to have as a difference in the Tobago space. And that, is not what we are seeing. And for many, yes, you're tending to say, listen, we need something new right now. But we need to ask ourselves, if going back, and I heard it being bandied about, if going back to the polls right now would truly get us what we need, or do we need to just look and see a little more how this plays out? In terms of the legality of it.
Yes.
And, this is very interesting, actually. Julian, I love what's going on because you and I both traveled to the states of Jersey with many of those young people who debated on Thursday.
Correct.
And we saw a legislative system similar to what is playing out right now. And the Tobago House of Assembly Act, unlike what governs the parliament in Trinidad and Tobago and perhaps many other areas of the Caribbean, the Tobago House of Assembly Act speaks to representatives voting for a chief secretary and a deputy chief secretary to govern the administration. And inside of that, it's not speaking to a party, and therefore it is not illegal.
So, and that's a very interesting perspective that you've brought forward, because some have begun asking the question, what happens to the chief secretary? What happens to the deputy in all of this? Does it mean that we automatically return to elections? So I want you to just clarify for the people of Tobago that at the moment, based on the THA Act, is there any automatic adjustments within the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly?
There's absolutely no automatic adjustment. There are probably 3 or 4 ways that you can go back to elections. Number one, the whole assembly has to agree that they are going back to elections and therefore to dissolve the House. That is a decision of all of those 15 people sitting around the table. The second way is to call a vote of no confidence in the chief secretary, in the deputy chief secretary, and therefore if there are no new persons coming forward inside of that, they can then decide as a group to dissolve the House. Whatever decision comes, the House has to agree to dissolve itself. The third way is that the autonomy bill can be rushed through in Parliament, and that triggers new elections automatically. Now, I have to ask myself, we have not heard sufficiently where that bill is and whether it truly serves the interests of Tobagonians at this time in terms of what was being put forward, because we all know that what was voted on by Tobagonians a few years ago is now, seems like totally different to what is being, put forward for us. And so it's really Tobago to decide whether they're accepting what is being on the table for autonomy right now and allowing people to, the parliament to push that through and therefore trigger new elections, or we are standing firm and saying that is not adequate, for what we have said that we wanted.
From where you sit, you know, being in Tobago here and seeing the developments and the fallout that took place between the political leader and the chief secretary and so on, and seeing where things have been going progressively as far as we were able to see as members of the general public, as I indicated, not necessarily seeing the internal workings, but you're seeing the parts that have come out publicly. Were you at all surprised that there was this kind of move or some move in a direction in response to what has been happening?
Surprised, yes, and no. Because you really did not think that it would get to this point of the actual separation or divorce papers that have been served this soon. Yes, there were rumblings. Yes, there were challenges, and it somehow, reminded you of what was occurring in the other party that they ousted. The fight between a political leader and a chief secretary. We've had that before. And, before a vote of no confidence was passed in the other one stepped down. But essentially, that was always there. And you now see it played out to the point where it has really gone further and further to test the capacity of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. That is where I am seeing that this really is, that's one of the main things that it is about. But it also speaks to the, to somewhat the leadership capacity of both. How come it can get that bad that you both cannot, through conversations, resolve your conflict and have agreement of how you work together in terms of going forward? And therefore, it will be interesting to see what happens amongst the 13 independents. What happens amongst them in order to be able to manage the administration? There will be conflict. But can the leader truly exercise the leadership capacity to not decide to terminate one of them, fire one of them, or one of them decide, well, they can't deal with the leader, so they cross in the floor? It's going to be very interesting. And once one crosses the floor, what happens? Okay, the minority leader no longer is the minority leader.
And so that's an interesting perspective that, I want you to elaborate on in the context of the Tobago House of Assembly Act. If those circumstances transpire any at all in looking at the progression of how things are going, and there is at least anyone supporting, how is the minority leader appointed in the House? Just remind us again.
Well, the minority leader is appointed with the support from those who don't support the current administration. And therefore, when Kelvin Morris came in, he was the only one, and therefore he became the minority leader. But now that you have two people in opposition from two different opposing parties, it would end up with numbers. So whether one crosses the floor and goes to with Kelvin, or one crosses the floor and goes with Duke, whoever gets that additional person will become the next minority leader. So it's not over yet.
You spoke about a matter in terms of the authority and the ability in terms of the chief secretary. Give us a clear indication as far as the act is concerned and the operations of the assembly. Notwithstanding a resignation from the party, does he still have that authority in terms of making decisions regarding the secretaries and so on within the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly? Because some persons, again, are mixing it in terms of the party and the THA.
We have to divorce the politics from the administration. The Tobago House of Assembly Act is very clear. And the only way that they can remove a chief secretary or the deputy chief secretary is by moving a vote of no confidence. The chief secretary has the authority to decide which secretary
is given which portfolio and who becomes a secretary versus an assistant secretary. So the chief secretary has that, that authority. But if you look at the act also says once decisions have been made in that regard by the chief secretary, it's supposed to be brought to the House for approval. Now that is really usually not done, but it's in there. And I should hope that at this time, perhaps that is a move that he can take in terms of bringing to the House, the decisions to rather maintain or move some of them around and have the House, have some words, comments on it and then decide. People talk about the mandate, and you can demand the mandate. In fact, this is exciting because you have now the public becoming involved in having a say. And this is where the legislative arm gets to grow. A decision can be taken to grow the legislative arm in terms of the number of petitions that would come in and how those petitions will be dealt with in the House. It's an opportunity for the growth of the legislature.
So you are seeing the opportunity here. Your thoughts specific.
You have to be optimistic,
yes.
else you go home and you put your head on that pillow and...
your thoughts specific to the proposed legal challenge being spoken to by the political leader, now Assemblyman Watson Duke.
Well, courts are really about interpretations. And even though the act is clear, you will always have one person who decides to interpret it one way and another person who decides to interpret it another way. It's left to be seen what comes out of it. But I will say this, there's no way that we could have elections in January 23.
So
January.
You're making that very clear.
January.
I want you
We
to
are in
elaborate
December.
on that. Yes.
The act again is clear. The House has to dissolve itself at least 3 months before we go to elections.
So even if that is the direction, it's not possible before the 3-month period or the January that is being stipulated.
Correct. And the House has to dissolve itself. So if all of the 13 say, no, they don't agree with dissolving, even though the motion is brought forward by any person in the opposition, in the minority, once the 13 say, no, we're not dissolving, that House is not being dissolved. And so, I guess they will have to rush it through Parliament. But again, the people of Tobago have to be careful with that. They have to be careful with that one.
A very, very, very interesting perspective there, and I want to leave that for when we return after the break here. Viewers, you are viewing the Tobago Updates morning show, and this morning we're speaking about the breaking news that came forward yesterday in terms of the resignation coming from the Progressive Democratic Patriots of all the members of the Tobago House of Assembly that previously held membership there, with the exception of the political leader that continues as the political leader of the PDP, and that's Watson Duke. But all other members of the House that previously belonged to the party have now tendered their resignation from the Progressive Democratic Patriots and are operating as independents. Viewers, at this point, we want to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Me secure their future, provides financial protection with added benefits. Whole Life, the affordable financial benefits plan. Tattoo Life, guaranteed protection.
Excuse me, Mr. Man. Playground rhyme. That's why I'm bringing back the playground rhyme.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show. It is 7:37 a.m. and we continue to welcome and thank you so much for your continued support for the Tobago Updates morning show. As we continue with this morning's interview, we are chatting with Dr. Denise Soyafat-Angas, former presiding officer of the Tobago House of Assembly. And just before we went off on the break, we were now beginning to chat about the context that deals with the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And you know, you have heard some indicating when we had this 6-6, after about a couple months and we weren't able to find a solution, the Parliament stepped in. And some are saying in this situation, the Parliament needs to step in and determine how we move forward. What are your thoughts on that position or that perspective being indicated by some?
If we continue to have the Parliament step in on our behalf, are we ready for autonomy, greater autonomy? No. And the Parliament needs to stay out of this. The people of Tobago need to be very mindful of a rush of an autonomy bill under the guise of trying to sort this out, when it's really a political move that will be made. A political move that we may regret for generations to come. Because once that bill is passed, it will be generations before we could make any adjustment to it. And so I caution Tobagonians to support or to not support that call to rush that bill through for the Tobago autonomy. Let us ensure we get the best deal now, because it will be that deal that governs us for generations to come. Let us make sure it is not taking us back or taking away what we currently have. And perhaps it is a blessing in disguise and an opportunity for us to see how the Tobago Assembly Act plays out with all of this.
I want you to make some distinctions. In the Parliament, we've had this situation where persons have crossed the floor and then they've introduced the crossing the floor, therefore permitting limitations and so on. And persons are making that analogy and comparison and saying the same thing would happen in the Tobago House of Assembly. I want you to make that distinction for the sake of an understanding,
right,
for the benefit of our viewers and listeners.
Let me tell you, the Tobago House of Assembly Act is not like anything, the laws that govern the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. It is unique in its creation, and it allows for all that we are seeing here right now. It is not illegal according to the Act. Now, if you take it elsewhere, it may border on legalities. But you see, the Act itself is not patterned on the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Like I said, it's unique, and it allows for the independence to be in the house. It allows for people to cross the floor. It allows for all of that to occur.
One of my colleagues described it, as you mentioned earlier, when we would have had the opportunity a few years ago, and shout outs this morning to Jomo Pitt, who was then secretary, venturing out and very much supportive, like yourself, in terms of really pushing and educating and informing our young people. Would you say, based on the experience and the exposure that would have been had then in the UK, that this is a real kind of teachable moment to see the assembly at work in the context of the concepts that have built out the Tobago Youth Assembly?
Let me tell you, I am so excited. I have goosebumps. We took a group of young people, I think it was what, 20, 25?
Correct, yes.
Young people out there to the United Kingdom to visit the Parliament in London, and also to visit islands similar to Tobago in size and all of the challenges Tobago goes through, they do too. And it's called the States of Jersey. And their constitution is similar to Tobago. In fact, they have had a hard time introducing party politics there because they run on independence in the House. And when those independents are voted in by the people, they then choose a chief secretary. The chief secretary chooses who is in administration to run, and then the chief secretary has to bring that back to the House. The House has to approve, and they can say, no, we don't want this one there, choose this one to go there. He is then given the mandate to go and execute on what the House agrees is now the new mandate for that administration. And all of them, because they are independents, they get to hold each other to account truly. So this is where the test will come, whether those independents will see themselves as a voice of the people or just a voice of Fali.
Very interesting, very interesting. As we look to wind down this morning's interview, your hopes and aspirations, any particular hopes in terms of seeing or predictions with how you see this continuing to unfold from here?
Well, I want to go to, because, it's end of year. And from my perspective, when you're in administration, it's about political goodwill in a bank. And you've put enough goodwill in there such that when bad times come, you have to take it out. But the state of this administration right now is that they don't have enough goodwill for all that has been happening, and essentially have become bankrupt. And, what we are seeing with them is what I would like to call the 5 Ds of destruction. You saw in the first, this attitude of disrespect, from early, telling the Attorney General, you can't tell me what to do. Senior citizens, go home and mind your grandchildren. The church community, that whole spat in the public domain with Pentecostal Light and Life. Then we come to, the issue of being disingenuous and deceptive in terms of what you promise the people. You promise not to terminate people on many of your platforms, and to date this has been the largest termination, massive termination of any administration coming in. URP workers, CPEP workers, your contract workers, qualified young people who have had their jobs for months, and you sent them home in the middle of a contract with no justifiable reason. And they're not recognizing that that is coming to bear on the economy. Because what we're having is a number of places throughout communities now having to close their doors because people no longer have jobs inside of there. And then we go to the level of disappointment that people are experiencing, because people are saying it kind of too early, it reminding us of what we just came from. It's almost like an exchange. And therefore, when you think about Stage in the Sea, it brings back the memories of a ring bang. It brings back the memories of the zip line. And those defining moments, in 1 year has already been established by this administration. And so people are also, this thing about disloyalty, it's far and wide. There is an attitude that Tobagonians are not good enough. We're not good enough for anything. In the agricultural sector, you bring in people from a company from Trinidad to provide agricultural products in Tobago. The creative and cultural sector, we saw that whole play out with the carnival, where the band leaders, Calypsonians were disregarded in Tobago. There was no loyalty to them, to the preservation of the carnival product, and this is also playing out in the construction sector, where there is this bringing all of the Trinidad contractors into Tobago. Nobody is saying that we cannot have some, but there has to be balance. There has to be a patience with our people, grooming them into the position, else we will always be the little sister and have no time to grow. So there has to be patience in grooming our people, giving them the opportunity to try, to fail, and to get better, to get up and walk. This is what we brought them in for. And so, it really is sad that, this is what persons have to be going through, feeling disenfranchised in their own spaces. And last but not least, the ultimate is the distraction away from the focus on the administration. The distraction on social media. It's a few months ago I was here, I call them the social media administration. Everything plays out on social media. And this recent outburst by the secretary, which follows the outburst by the Secretary of Education's mother on Facebook. But this recent outburst by the Deputy Chief Secretary is totally unacceptable. Yes, she has apologized, but we already know what's in her heart. Yes, I appreciate she apologized, but you already know what's in her heart. And so those 5 Ds, I call them the 5 Ds of destruction, because it is too early in the administration for them to show themselves like this, in this manner. And people of Tobago are not forgiving of the 5 Ds.
All right, so we got to leave it there this morning, and thank you very much for joining us here on set, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, former presiding officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, sharing her perspective on the current
of the Innovative Democratic Alliance. We have to give people hope,
Yes, and the political leader of IDA this morning, sharing certainly her perspective on the current happenings 1 year in. And we have coming up next, Anne-Marie James Henry, author, When Love Calls You Home. And give us a little wave there. She's on set, ready to head on with us this morning. And therefore, viewers, at this point, we're heading on out to a break, and she will return with Ria. And we just want to remind you, all of you joining us on the live, those continuing to connect with us this morning, we want to thank you so much for the continued love and support, and to remind you that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorn's Place, with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorn's Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Excel Spa by Haley, where our highly trained staff are ready to deliver the top-class services in facial massages, waxing, nail enhancement, and body treatment. We are ideally located at Coco Avenue, Switzerland, Tobago. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TripAdvisor, or you can call us on 730-0149. Excel Spa by Haley. Relax, renew, and rejuvenate.
It's a different type of thing down there. And we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there. Down in Tobago.
Coconut Sky Cafe, the buffet restaurant that specializes in all your tasty local dishes. For breakfast and for lunch. Breakfast includes coconut bake and sada roti, served with chokers, bull joil, and sausages in tomato sauce. Not forgetting beef and cheese pies, shepherd's pie, macaroni pie, and rice in various styles. Meat served in a variety of flavors, garden salads, and pasta salads. All this accompanied by fruit juices, coconut water, your choice of a great combination to appease your taste buds. So call us today to order, as we are here to accommodate your busy schedules or if you are having a cooking day off.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Morning again, viewers, and welcome back this morning to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. We are chatting this morning with Minister Anne-Marie L. James Henry, an author, a daughter of the soil this morning. She's here this morning to chat with us on her book, When Love Calls You Home. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Ria. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to have you back in Tobago. I have to say welcome home, welcome home.
Thank you, Auntie Ria.
You look really good.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
Enjoy the sun because very soon.
Back in the cold.
That's right. Now, I want to ask you here, what prompted this? Give us an idea into the mind of Anne-Marie James Henry that prompted this book.
So you will realize, Ria, that there's a subtitle to the book, A Journey to Healing and Restoration. And that's where it started after a medical diagnosis in 2013, where they found a regular checkup. The doctor found, my primary care physician found a right renal artery aneurysm just through an ultrasound. And that changed everything for me. And when I say change, it changed in the sense that I had to leave some of what I was doing, my job changed, my location changed, my status changed, everything changed. That diagnosis meant that I had to go through a period where I had to rest because there was nothing that the doctors could do medically, and any intervention, whether surgery, would have created a scenario, as one doctor in the US told me, where I would have been either dead or incapacitated because it was so complicated, and it was the array find. Anywhere I go now in the United States, doctors ask me, how did they discover this? And that is what prompted this book, because it took a journey through me being strong in faith, confident in who I am, recognizing that I can, adjust to change and pivot to a different place where I am today.
What were some of your fears, if you can remember so far back? What were some of your fears at the time, looking at your present situation, not knowing what your future held? What were you thinking then and there?
I think one of the greatest fear was feeling as though I didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish in life. I was actually preparing for death, silently. My family didn't even know. I was in my mind mentally preparing to write my obituary. I was deciding who I will give my books to, all my possessions. I was planning my funeral service in my head. Those were some of the fears I had. How would my family deal with this? Because prior to that, I had 2 years prior to that, we lost my brother, my youngest brother. So I was wondering, how would my parents adjust to this type of life, losing 2 children in a short space of time? I was actually preparing for death. And that reality that there was nothing that the doctor could medically do to help me at that time, because I went to 2 vascular surgeons in Trinidad. I went to one at the Port of Spain General Hospital. After he looked at the ultrasound results, they sent me to do a lot of CT scan. They tried to figure out, is there anything wrong with your kidney? Do you have high blood pressure, diabetes? Nothing like that existed, which were preconditions to what they discovered, the right renal artery aneurysm. It was not there. I asked them, how did this happen? They couldn't tell me, but it was just there. They did angiograms, nothing. And so with all that information and the fear that the doctors couldn't do anything. That was the reality, that Anne-Marie, is either you have to live with this or you will die soon from this. So one of the doctors, in fact, the doctor who discovered the right renal artery aneurysm, who is now dead, Dr. Madhu, he said to me, he said, well, hear what, you have to tell your family what is happening. And when you tell them, prepare them, because anything could happen. It could rupture, and you could be anywhere, and you could just go into shock, and that will be the end of you. And that was in 2013.
How are you now? This is what, 9 years later. How are you doing?
I am well
now.
Yes, I have to go to the doctor every 6 months to do the CT scan with all that dye radiation in my body. But I am well, because between that period of time, so much have happened. And the doctor in the United States, in fact, when I went for my first encounter with that doctor, just to get a second opinion, after I left, and he said, if you did that operation in Trinidad as they wanted to, because it was approved, THA had already sent money to Sinclair Medical for me to do that operation. And the doctor in the United States said, if you did that operation, you would have either been dead or incapacitated. Why didn't I do the operation? Because when I met with a nephrologist here at the Tobago Regional Health Authority, she said to me, there is nothing we could really do. It may be something that you will have to live with. But I heard the voice of God say to me, Anne-Marie, do not let anyone touch you. I will fix it for myself.
How do you translate that? How do you say God told me when doctors, when the professionals in their area are saying, we need to do this, else you will die? How do you venture to say, well, God told me?
Well, the thing about it is I never told any one of them God told me, but what I told them is, it's okay, I'm going to be all right. I don't think it's wise for me to do this. That was my translation of that. And for me, it meant that I had to trust in the relationship I had with God.
Did they think you were crazy?
Oh, no, they didn't think I was crazy. They actually thought that I was doing the right thing because they understood the risk involved. Because it meant I would have lost that kidney. And they didn't know what was going to happen. It was complicated. In fact, how the doctor explained it to me, they would have had to go in, do the surgery, take out the kidney, do those snippet things where the aneurysm is over like there are three arteries leading into the kidney, the aneurysm over the 3 arteries. They would have to do the adjustment to all of that, remove that, and then wait. And then it meant that the kidney would have had to go on cold storage. No, I'm not a doctor, but this is how it was explained to me. So in my mind, that sounds complicated.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And defying all odds, I am here and they're amazed. Every time I walk into the doctor's office in the United States, they ask me, how did they discover this? Are you okay? How are you feeling? And I feel fine. There was no evidence. I can't say I felt a pain or anything that said that something was wrong with me. But I'm here today.
And you are here today and you are doing very well.
Yes, I am.
All right. Now, this book here, we don't want to sell out too much on the book, but in terms of the name of the book, what prompted the name? How did you get the name?
The name of the book came before I left Tobago. On a flight back from the United States after seeing one of the specialists, I heard the voice of God say to me, Anne-Marie, prepare to leave Tobago. So I said, that's crazy. At my age, I don't want to migrate. But then I did it. It was difficult. I can't jump into all the details because, of course, I'll be giving away the information in the book. But I did. And then when I got to the United States, 1 week after, I met my husband.
You didn't see that coming, did you?
I didn't see that coming because when I was leaving Tobago, people kept saying, oh, you will get married when you go to the United States. Oh, I said, no, I'm not interested in that. And this is hope for those who are out there who feel as though age is a limit to what God can do in your life. So this book is not just about restoration physically, not about healing physically. It's about healing emotionally, healing spiritually, healing for women who feel hopeless, women who have been abandoned, hurt, abused, mistreated. This book is all of that in one.
And more.
And more. So when I met my husband, it was someone I knew from before. And it just opened up a door. And the Lord said to me, when love calls you home, healing happens spiritually. When you find that place in your heart where you're at peace with yourself, at peace with who you are, at peace with the purpose and calling on your life, you find that resting place and you are restored. So in that place, I was restored. I was tired. I was weary. As you know, Auntie Rhea, I was doing a lot.
Yes.
I was doing a lot. And so my body was tired. And when we do a lot and we give a lot, when we are in professions like the one I was in as a minister and working with children and helping a lot of people, find themselves, there is a place in you where you're scarred with the rigors of giving out so much. And because of that place, it affects your body.
Physically. That's right.
So when love calls you home, tells about finding that place. And when you are at rest and peace in who you are in God, you are restored.
Yeah. And how can persons get a copy? How can they put their hands on a copy of this book?
So I'm here just for a short while. I return on Wednesday, but this book will be available at Jarrick's Seatronics. That is downstairs, last building, opposite Education and Dutch Fort.
Right.
They can find a copy of the book there. And of course, those who want to reach out, I'm online on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and you can get your copies of the book on Amazon also. They are at Barnes and Nobles. So those who don't get it at Jarrick's Seatronics, because it's only a limited amount of copies available there, can go on Amazon and purchase a copy of the book also, Rhea.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for chatting with us on When Love Calls You Home. Almost sounds like the title of a movie. All right?
Yes.
So again, thank you so much and all the best to you. It's good to have you in Tobago. Even for a short period of time, we are grateful to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, well, viewers, we're going to leave it there. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. We've got lots more coming up. So share the live, share the live, share the live.
Welcome. It's Christmas time at Le Marge Parfait Day Spa.
Feliz Navidad. Bienvenido a Limas Parfait Day Spa.
Never ever worry, don't mind if life make you sad. I tell them never ever worry, if your house get flooded out real bad. I tell them never ever worry, what I'm saying is true. So just consider, Tatil will always be here for you.
Tatil, where people are people. You know what I mean.
Mamai Lakai Home Services. We specialize in cleaning of carpets and rugs, mattresses, living room and dining room sets, vehicle detailing, cleaning and sanitizing of homes and commercial spaces. We also do landscaping and tree cutting, pressure and power washing, floor care, fumigating and air purifying. You can also call us for professional painting services, babysitting and adult sitting. Call us now 333-4430 at Mamai Lakai Home Services. We take cleaning to another level.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates Morning Show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough. And yes, viewers, it's that kind of morning. Very interesting developments happening here within the Tobago space. Rhea? Perspectives.
Indeed, indeed. But let's share some of what's been happening on the live. A lot of persons are saying on the live here, Julian, that they want to hear the perspectives of Mr. Charles, Hochoy Charles, and Ashworth Jack on what has been happening. We would also like to hear from Mr. Reginald Dumas. I think he's one of those persons whose views we love to get on the issue as well. I'm not sure how the Mandate Mondays was last evening, 9 o'clock last night. But does the and let me ask the viewers here on even on the live if they want to hear, if they want a one-on-one with Watson Duke on this. We will be having the chief on with Candace from 8 o'clock this morning on, well, a little after 8 o'clock on GMT. But do persons want to hear from Watson Duke a one-on-one on this issue?
Well, I strongly suspect it's that kind of time where it is people want to hear perspectives to give them a sense of what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. And I think depending on which side of the political divide you sit, there's an indication of who you want to hear more. And if you really could care less about your affiliation with either or party, you want to hear persons who you believe can bring you somewhat of an independent kind of perspective, bring the facts forward in the matter, and, you know, try to put aside the emotions. But, you know, 1 year in, it's interesting to note that we are still very much politically charged as a people, and therefore you still see the very strong evidence of party coming forward in some of the perspectives and so on being expressed. So you see where if you're a supporter of the former administration, you have a particular perspective on this entire process and the happenings. If you're a supporter of the current administration, and specific at that, the current administration led by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, then you have one perspective in relation to supporting. And then if you're a supporter of the current administration and the political leader, Watson Duke, you kind of have another perspective on it. So it's very interesting times ahead as we look forward to see what the developments will be.
All right. Well, so far, Julian, Astra says no, no, and no. Carlos says he doesn't say what he had to say. And I could just picture her saying it that way. All right. Devon says nope. Lyndon Mack says, how do you verify facts? So far, doesn't seem, but of course it's open to further comments to hear what the public would have to say. Nikki says, God help the people of Tobago. And one of previous commenter says, that's because they love politics and not the well-being of Tobago. And that was one of the comments, one of the comments made by a previous live viewer who was concerned about the people of Tobago at the end of the day. Is Tobago, and we heard Mr. Duke at one point during one of the Mandate Mondays about, you know, the people of Tobago being affected even by all that's been happening. But what is your role and your function in all of this? Do all parties take responsibility for where things have bottlenecked to?
You know, and one of the questions, interesting perspective that would have been raised by Dr. Angus, because the conversation has, you have heard it coming up constantly, those from the former administration as well as from the political leader Watson Duke, there would have been a particular mandate on which the administration would have been elected to office. And the question is, at this point, even as independents, even as they have announced, you know, as independents within the House, the question is, does it stop persons from holding them to those commitments that they would have made? Because I had a little toss-up in my mind with the analogy where politicians told us at a point in our history, I could send up a dog in the area, or I could send up a crapo in the area, and they will vote, and they will vote. And you know, this has happened in our Trinidad and Tobago dynamics. The question is now, people have voted party going into a THA election.
Right.
But I want to believe that Tobagonians also voted for the people
Yes.
that came forward. And I have always told persons that for me, it's not about the political party that presents itself, but it's about the people that offer themselves within the context of the electoral district. So for some, yes, it will be about party, but some not only paid attention to party, but they also paid attention to the person that they were electing to office, and therefore they have confidence in that person.
In this
time
around,
yeah, you've had people who have had the toss-up that said in and around and far and wide they supported the PDP because of their hopes in terms of Fali Augustine for Chief Secretary. And while they appreciate and they were very confident and they were thankful for the work that Watson Duke had done, they didn't necessarily see Watson Duke as Chief Secretary. And therefore, the party took certain decisions that allowed for, when the determination was made, that Fali Augustine would be Chief Secretary. So these are all questions that continue to come up now. Have we come to a point and a time, and we will see how the people of Tobago respond to this, where it is people are focused on the persons that have been elected even more than just the party that they would have elected to office, and therefore is there anything stopping us, or in fact should they continue in office? We have to make a determination of how we hold them accountable, and I will continue to hold them accountable by way of the commitments that they have made on the platform, whether they're in the PDP or not. These are the commitments that you have made to the people of Tobago.
So Sean says no, he does not want to hear from him. Jojo Sylvester says no. Lyndon Max says they have become very proud. Julian, you cannot resign from a party that you got into office, then state you are independent. That is Westminster politics.
What stops you? It has been done. There is nothing in the Tobago House of Assembly Act that stops it. In the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, that cannot take place. And that's why there was a time where it happened in the Parliament, just for the information and education of our viewers and listeners. There was a time in the Parliament when it happened. And then the Parliament made changes to introduce the crossing of the floor that gave more authority to political parties in the mix. But interesting enough, that change was never made in the Tobago House of Assembly Act. So it's very interesting to see how it will go forward. And as we have said, part of the perspectives that will naturally come forth, we'll hear from those from political parties, we'll hear from the political analysts and so on.
All right. I see Carlos is asking a question here. All commitments can be fulfilled in 1 year. Khadijah says people getting confused with with THA and Parliament and parliamentarians or Parliament, the THA and Parliament. Rightly so there, Khadijah. She says they can do such. Hector McLean, educate them, Julian. That's Wallace Tobago. That's right. Educate them, Julian. Pavel. Conveniently, Diane says...
That response can't be any better. Conveniently, people are getting confused. When there was the 6-6, and I heard some tout it in terms of using the Constitution and the default for where the standing orders doesn't cover, and it led to pulling of the straws, the party opposite said noted. Now I am hearing the party opposite touting that the possibility exists, perspective being expressed, that you can now use the same constitution where the assembly doesn't speak to it, to turn to the convenience of the parliament. So folks, I mean,
that's why Pavel says here, conveniently.
It's a political toss-up in terms of things are used when it is convenient, but I think I want to state expressly from my simple understanding, the Tobago House of Assembly Act is very clear in these circumstances, and we look forward to seeing what the legal perspectives would be for those who take it as far as the court this morning.
JJ Allen says, think they should trigger a public education drive on the THA Act. Julia Brown says, Mr. Duke knew the party would not have won if Watson was the chief sec. Wallace says, education, Julian. All right. And Carlos sends you a...
Yeah, I think if nothing else, there is certainly opportunities for learning. And yes, folks, as we prepare to wrap this morning's Tobago Updates morning show, the opportunities continue as we have in the house Chief Secretary, the Honorable Fali Chavez Augustine, coming up next with us on GMT. Good morning, Tobago. So we look forward to hearing perspectives there, and we're going to get some insights into the happenings. And in fact, this is the first media house that he will be speaking to since the announcement.
That's
so
right.
we look forward to the upcoming interview, folks. Remember to stay tuned as we have up next Chief Secretary, the Honorable Fali Chavez Augustine. Take care and bye-bye for now, folks.
Have a great day,
Stay
Tobago.
connected. Have a great
See
day.
you tomorrow.
The competition targeted youth ages 12 to 18 years. They were asked to creatively express their understanding of Trinidad and Tobago's independence via a short video presentation. Speaking to the recipients, Chief Secretary the Honorable Fali Augustine says focusing on national values dissuades youth from deviant behavior.
It's so important that we get people, young people especially, feeling a sense of pride, pride in self, pride in community, and pride for your country.
Placing third with an inspirational group submission inspired by the Mighty Sparrow, Calypso Classic, The Slave, was the Mason Hall Police Youth Club, represented by 17-year-old Kyra Manswell.
It kind of displayed everything that he was looking at. So while he sang, we also sang for ourselves, and we looked for backgrounds to display what he was saying. And we went to the fort, and we went and we had a lot of fun actually.
The runner-up was St. Joseph Convent San Fernando student Renata Ramlogan, age 17. Accompanied by her mother, Nalani Harry Ramlogan, Renata says she entered the competition after seeing the flyer posted on Facebook.
Trinidad and Tobago is my home, and that's where my heart is. I can go anywhere in the world. But that drove the passion that I put into the video, and I hoped that those that watch the video would be able to get that passion, because though Trinidad has other issues like crime and poverty in some areas and all of that, Trinidad is a beautiful place. Tobago is wonderful, and that is home, and that is heart.
The winner was another 17-year-old Signal Hill Secondary School student, Joselle Dan. She delivered a powerful presentation that she hoped would inspire greater patriotism in the youth of her generation.
I actually spoke to some of my friends and I asked them, what is independence about? And they say, oh, that is the thing, just go and watch fireworks about. They don't know the backstory about it. And I took this as an opportunity for me to allow other individuals to learn about the history of independence, not just about it being about fireworks and marching bands and you get to eat snow cone and all of that, So it was basically me wanting to educate young persons within my age group about their history.
Accompanied by her father, Joel Dan, Joshelle was elated to take the top prize. She's urging Tobago's youth to make the best in every effort to support nation building.
Take all your education seriously. A lot of people put a lot of effort into making sure that you are here. You have the opportunity to learn. I have friends in other Caribbean territories that don't get to go to school for free, and we have it here, so we should use that opportunity wisely. You see, we have a lot of initiatives here in Tobago, and I'm also encouraging them to take part in it. It will make a positive change in their life, and therefore it will help to better our island as well.
The My Independence Story video presentation competition was held in commemoration of the Trinidad and Tobago's 60th anniversary of independence. First prize was $3,000, while second and third finishers earned $2,000 and $1,000 respectively.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
Tobago Updates.
Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Candace and Denicia. Let's go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up.
Welcome to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, your source for current affairs in Tobago, Trinidad, and the region. With the perfect conversations to complement your morning routine, I am Candace Jackson, and let's get started with the news in 90 seconds. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine and the entire Executive Council resigned from the Progressive Democratic Patriots effective December 1st. In the resignation letter addressed to political leader Watson Duke, Augustine said he and his colleagues in the Assembly took the collective decision to resign from the party but remain focused on serving the people of Tobago as independents. In response, Duke said, quote, Fali and friends, end quote, did the honorable thing by resigning from the party. He criticized them for ambushing the PDP and not executing the mandate they campaigned on. Additionally, Duke threatened to take Augustine and company to court for fresh elections. Meanwhile, the political leader of the Tobago Council of the PNM, Ansel Dennis, supported a call for new elections. Dennis said Tobagonians voted the PDP into the THA and not individuals. Adding his voice, Minority Leader Kelvin Morris said the first anniversary is tainted by resignations, indicating that the THA has collapsed under the leadership of Fali Augustine. He also believed they failed the people of Tobago and should not continue in office. However, geopolitical scientist Dr. Shane Mohammed commended Augustine and the Executive Council for divorcing themselves from the PDP. He noted that with the party drama behind them, they can now focus on serving Tobagonians to the best of their ability. And nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley retained his position as political leader of the PNM. The party hosted its internal elections over the weekend, and Dr. Rowley garnered 92% of the votes. His challenger, Karen Nunez Teixeira, captured 4% of the votes. However, the voter turnout was low. Chairman of the Election Supervisory Committee, Anthony Roberts, revealed that less than 10% of members cast their ballots. And that was your news in 90 seconds. And well, viewers, you've been following us over the past couple of weeks as we've been talking to the assemblyman and the councillors as we get a perspective on the first day in office for, well, what was the PDP-led administration. Now, things have changed quite a bit. But, of course, rounding off those discussions, it's our pleasure to have with us none other than Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, who is, of course, the assemblyman for Lansome, for Palatable Lansome, Speyside, as well as the Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy. Additionally, now, before we get started, I would just like you all to feel free to jump on the comment sections and, send us your questions if you have some, but please be respectful. Again, we are asking you all that if you are commenting on the lives and so on, to please be respectful with your comments. And yes, let's have some open discussions. It's okay to disagree or to have a difference of opinion, but we can do it in a very respectful manner. All right, so good morning and welcome to you, Chief Secretary. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I am doing well this morning. Every new day you are awake, one ought to be grateful to God for being awake and being alive. So I am just happy to be in the land of the living. So God is good. Everything is working according to that which God has ordained. So that's just perfect as far as I'm concerned.
On December 6, 2021,
that's right.
You won.
Correct.
14 seats for the PDP. The people trusted you for their candidate as Chief Secretary. They trusted your mandate and they agreed with what the PDP presented to them. And now you are no longer, you and your team, with the exception, of course, of Mr. Watson Duke, are no longer with the PDP.
And that is not something you could have foreseen a year ago. And it's the nature of the business that we are in, that there's always several moving parts and sometimes a thing evolves. We also must appreciate that life occurs in seasons, and the season that is the PDP is just over for most of us. One must ask themselves the pertinent question of why would an entire team, depart and leave its political leader behind. A year ago, I came to the people and I led a team successfully. And throughout the year that passed, we have been on mission, executing a lot of those brave, bold, progressive moves. And a year later, we have a lot to be thankful for. And certainly, I will be the first to say that we have more work to do. I will be the first to say that where we are, we have done good, but there is always better and best to be done. Because we have to appreciate that we have to keep moving and keep pushing. But at the end of the day, last night as I reflected on this matter, my mind went back to my boyhood days, and we all experience it. When, in the neighborhood, we will all come out to probably play cricket, let's say cricket. And there is always that one guy who is fortunate enough to own the bat and the ball. But whenever he's out, whenever the rules of the game doesn't suit him, he wants to change the rules of the game in the middle of the game so that he could just keep batting because the bat and the ball is his. And the minute the team says, no, well, these are the rules of engagement we agree to, he will take his bat and ball and go home. And the rest of the team is forced to pick a coconut branch to make a bat and perhaps use young coconuts to bat. But guess what? The game continues, the work continues, the cohesion among the neighborhood children continues. And that one individual is left with his bat and ball by himself. And this is exactly what has transpired. We wish him nothing but the best. At this very moment in the House, there are 13 independents, 1 PDP, 1 PNM. I wish to make it categorically clear that that is extremely legal, extremely constitutional. In fact,
and let's get into that.
Sure.
Why is this situation okay? Why would it not lead to us going back to the
Let me
polls?
explain why it's okay. Because there was once a genius that walked this land called A.N.R. Robinson, who, when they were constructing Act 40 of 1996, insisted and persisted that the act should not reflect what happens in the House of Representatives, which is often very undemocratic. He wanted a House of elected members with just 4 appointed councillors, but he did not want a House that was run by the politics of the party. He wanted a House run by the people who are elected, so that people have more allegiance to the people who elected them than to the political party under whose umbrella it would have campaigned. One must also appreciate the fact that on any ballot paper, there are two primary things that are there. One must absolutely be there, the other is optional. One, there is a party symbol, and the second, there is the name of a candidate. You vote for a candidate in every single electoral district. You may not need a party symbol because you can, in fact, run as an independent member. But you definitely need a candidate. And 13 of the candidates have decided that we will no longer represent the institution that is known as the Progressive Democratic Patriots. We believe that it is highly untenable that the party chairman and the party leader believes that the party's direction must basically be on the decree of the political leader. That's not democratic. In fact, the party chairman was on your show, I believe, on this program, I believe,
yes,
and made it very clear on that program that whatsoever the political leader says is the law, and that all the members must go by. That is a very untenable position. We believe in country over party. We believe in people over party. We believe in ensuring that the governance of the island continues in a focused and stable manner. You will observe that while all the brouhaha went on for weeks, I can count on one hand the number of times I have addressed the issue or addressed Mr. Duke in particular. And also you can count perhaps on one hand the amount of times the other members have also done the same.
No,
And that's because we chose to keep focus on the people's business, while Mr. Duke can just be himself. And that's all fine.
And now, Mr. Augustine, the people of Tobago voted your team under the PDP's mandate. And there are some that now believe that, you know, you all are no longer a part of the PDP, and now they're worried about, you know, whether or not that mandate can be followed. How can people trust that you guys can follow that mandate, even though you are no longer under the banner of the PDP?
Well, let me say this. You know how that mandate was constructed? We, the 13 members, along with others, went out to the people of Tobago over almost an entire year, between the 6-6 in January of 2021 and the election of December in 2021. And we asked people, what do you want? And we were the ones that collected that data. We were the ones that sat down in guest houses and villas and sat down in each other's living rooms and sat down late into the night, going over and over plan by plan and saying, okay, this is what we got when we walked Castara. This is what we got when we walked in Plymouth. This is what we got when we walked Lake Oto. And we compiled that document. So that document, that is the mandate, remains government policy, remains the guiding principle upon which we govern. It is that mandate that have given rise to several of the wonderful things you have seen. It's that mandate that gave rise to the rise in salaries for CPEP workers, URP workers. It is that mandate that gave rise to the position where the development workers in agriculture are now remunerated at the same level as their daily rated counterparts. It's that mandate that led to the removal of the dress code policy. It is that mandate that resulted in the cataract surgery, and in fact the single largest cohort of cataract surgeries on the island. It is that mandate that gave rise to the single largest grant distribution to ever happen in terms of housing grants through settlements. It is that mandate that has resulted in the purchasing of equipment in agriculture, the local estate experience, Tobago having its first indigenous carnival at such a large scale. It is that mandate that has given rise to so many other things. If I'm to sit and begin to call out all of the achievements, then it will probably take you an hour.
But there's also that criticism that, you know, I mean, you had this massive mandate. Let me say, like one part of it is that $10 million for each electoral district, but we didn't really see that happening. You didn't see some of those big ticket items within the first year. So some people are wondering, how committed are you to fulfilling that mandate?
Well, one must appreciate that your mandate document, and some parties call it a manifesto, that every single thing in it will never ever be accomplished in 1 year. It is absolutely ludicrous. In fact, and anyone who pushes the idea that every single thing in the mandate must be executed in 1 year are those who are just plain and simply trying to fool people. That is not practical, it's not possible anywhere in the world.
And is that something that Mr. Duke did not understand?
Well, there are many things Mr. Duke does not understand, including the Tobago House of Assembly Act. I'm not sure if he even read it. But when you go through the mandate, one, you will appreciate that the mandate itself indicates that the plans therein are to be executed over 4 years and beyond. Because we looked at Tobago short, medium, and long term. Where do we want to see this island we call Tobago, and how do we get to the place where this island is the greatest little island on the planet? And we appreciate that 4 years and all will not be enough, because we said that on the campaign. Secondly, the mandate said, you raise a specific principle. The mandate said that ideally we would love to be able to make available $10 million for every electoral district, but we will start with whatever funds are available and work our way all the way up to that ideal place of that $10 million. We are not there yet in terms of the income of the THA. And if you listen to me in June's budget, if you listen to me in January when I gave the state of the economy, if you listen to me again in November, I keep pointing out two salient points. One, the underfunding of Tobago's development by the central government, notwithstanding the fact that the Minister of Finance gave high kudos for the budget that was presented in June and the impact it will have on the economy. But also, I pointed out that one of the things the THA lacked over the years was a structure and systems to be able to generate significant income outside of the subventions given from the National Parliament. And of course, in 1 year, you can't move from bringing in minimally amount of taxes in the region of about 250 million to generating enough income to match all of your budget requirements. And of course, the central government continues to underfund Tobago's development by way of giving closer to the lower percentile of the DRC recommendation of 4.03%. And given those circumstances, I did point out that as of January this year, that we're starting with $150,000 being made available. In fact, what is happening as we speak is that the policy is being refined, because we're not just taking the money and handing it to Europe and say, here, look, this money, spend it out across the year. We'll have to ensure the public's, the financial regulations are maintained, and that there is accountability for the use of those funds. And of course, I am inclined that if, as the year progresses, the fiscal year progresses, and we see where we are in terms of income, that we can increase that from the $150,000. I also made mention of the fact that between 2016 and now, that THA has, the Tobago population has been robbed of in excess of $130 million. They pass it in the budget, and at the end of the fiscal year, for some reason, they refuse to send the monies for Tobago. And I'm saying that is certainly something I'm pursuing. We want every cent of it, and that money, of course, can assist in even increasing what we offer per electoral district. But certainly, I don't think like Mr. Duke, and I'm not sure if they call him minority leader now or not, because in a construct that is 13,
and I do want to get into that,
he can become that. But I just want to point out this really quickly, that unlike what Mr. Duke thinks, and he said it in the House in November, $150,000 in his claim, that is not even enough money to mind a side woman. That's what he said in the House, his sidekick. And I don't know much about side women and sidekicks, because I don't keep any. Keep one wife, and I'm satisfied with that. But I'm saying we start with what is available, and we make it work. Out of that, I expect area reps, all area reps, to do simple projects, whether it is assisting an elderly lady with building a step, or doing cleanup projects in certain areas, assisting your sports groups to get, equipment and uniforms, assisting the schools with the graduation exercises. Those minor projects are what they're meant for. And bear in mind that the social service programs of the THA, those in no way are thwarted. In fact, those have in fact been ramped up. And so those other assistance remain available, whether it's for funeral grants or food card, the temporary emergency food cards and so on. Those other social programs remain available while this fund is there for small community projects.
Certainly.
And will hopefully aid in reinvigorating that sense of volunteerism and community spirit back into our districts.
All right, so we are at a position right now where 13 of you are independents. Now, I mean, what should we term you guys? Like, what should we call you? Because, I mean, for the past year, you were the PDP-led administration. So, I mean, how should you be described? How should the team be described?
It is a team of independents, which means that every vote in the House now comes as a conscience vote, which means that we do not have a name, we do not have a party, we have not identified as a party, identified under a symbol, and that is perfectly fine given the construct of the Tobago House of Assembly. In fact, what people don't know is that in this very moment, I can write a letter to the president and I could appoint Mr. Morris as a secretary in my executive council. That is a fact. That is actually how the TH operates. If I want at this very moment, I can make.
And do you want to?
No, I don't. No, I don't. But I'm just saying, the THA is constructed in a manner that it's expected that the executive is formed at the discretion of the the chief secretary, and formed in a manner that is consistent with the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations of the island, as opposed to the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of the political party. And that's the difference. We are talking about a much higher order of democracy, something that does not even exist in the United Kingdom, based on their Westminster construct. And when you look at our conversations about autonomy for Tobago, one of the things that we have been talking about is having a construct that is superior to what happens in the House of Representatives. Is why there was an argument for something called a People's House. Why there was an argument that if you're not going to get the People's House, at least there must be separation of powers in the construct of the new Tobago House of Assembly. And that was seen as a critical element because we did not want to transform the THA to being like a House of Representatives, which is a dictatorship. In fact, my position as Chief Secretary only remains so long as members of the House are willing to vote for me to remain as Chief Secretary.
And what about the minority? Because we have a situation now, we have a PNM representative in that of Mr. Calvin Morris, as well as now Mr. Watson-Duke under, of course, the PDP. So would there be any change to the minority? Would Calvin Morris remain as minority leader and, of course, Ms. Petal Daniel Benoit as the councillor for the minority?
Well, the question of who remains as minority leader is not for me to answer. There is one on each side, one PDP, one PNM. Either of them can be minority leader, either of them, based on what the law allows for. They will just require some support from members to be able to do that. The law just simply says that the minority leader is a person who enjoys the majority of support of those who stand in opposition to the government. And so that could be any of the two. At this moment, there is no difference between the both of them. I see that they caucus together. I see that Mr. Morris gives up his privileges as minority leader to Mr. Duke to lead off in responses to debates and budget debates and so on. That's fine. That's their business to haggle over. Our business is to keep the government of the island of Tobago going, to keep focus on all of those mandate issues, the many things still to be done while we have the massive cleanup exercises still ongoing, the need to build out strategically for the island, what this island will look like, not just 4 years from now, but what this island will look like 10 and 15 years from now. And it will be remiss of me to not sit here and to point out quite clearly that we once gave one political party 21 years. 21 years, you can execute your long-term plan, your long-term vision. And a lot of what the very minority, the two members there and the councillor, are demanding should happen in 1 year are things that they did not achieve in 21 years.
But Mr.
And so all of that has to be taken with a grain of salt and be measured.
Certainly.
And note, I am not saying in any moment that I think the team did everything perfectly right and that we did not have some gaps. I'm not saying that at all. I'm the first to say that there is more work to be done. I believe we did good. Good is by no means the superlative, nor is it the comparative. Going back into my English teaching days now. But once there is good, it means that we recognize that there is room for even more progress. There's room to get better, and there's room to provide that which is best. And even as we go through what is a steep learning curve, especially in understanding and appreciating the interplay between the public servants and the politicians and how that work and so on. Granted that you have an executive completely made of new members, I am saying that we have done quite good over the year, and we can only go upwards from here, especially since this albatross is now off our necks.
Right. And I mean, before we get into some of the performances and a little bit detailed into that, I want to know from you, now, if there's a choice between Mr. Calvin Morris or Mr. Watson-Duke for minority leader, if that situation ever does come up that need for a new election of the minority in the House, who will you support?
When I reach that bridge, I'll cross it. I remember when there was some conversations not so long ago about the matter with Kelvin Charles, and I had a similar position in terms of when I reach that bridge, I will cross it. In fact, I may even just abstain from such a vote. It's not something that I have thought about. Certainly not something I have prayed about. It's not something I have dreamt about either. So I've given it no thought. In fact, the parallel minority leaders, they can decide among themselves who will lead whom, and that's their business, no longer my business.
All right. Now, are you worried that this situation might result in your team having only 3 more years in office, that you may not get another chance to go back?
I'm not worried, because if we look at some of the amount of work we did in 1 year, imagine what will happen in 4 years. I'm not worried at all. In fact, I appreciate that we may even have a larger and much more broad base appeal, given that Mr. Duke is no longer an element to be concerned about.
All right, and I want to talk a little bit about just that fallout between yourself and Mr. Duke. Did that affect you in any way? How did you deal with it on a personal level?
I prefer not to talk about how I deal with it on a personal level. I could tell you that the one good thing about it is that it made me even more prayerful. I spend a lot more time praying, sometimes praying and fasting about the matter. And I do continue to pray for Mr. Duke. In fact, I could tell you, we caucused and met on Saturday evening late. We're talking about sometime after 6 p.m. all the way to after 10 p.m. as a team. And in that closing prayer, I made it a duty to pray for him and to pray that God will have his way with him. The thing is, I have long lived by the principle that sometimes you need to just heap blessings on your enemies, and so doing a heaping coals of fire on their head.
So do you term him as your enemy right now?
Well, he has made me his enemy, no doubt. A political enemy, that is. But the point I'm making is, when you give energy to that sort of thing, you tend to lose yourself. You forgive people for yourself. You just don't waste time on negative energies whatsoever. And I have chosen not to. I have chosen to deal with his disparaging remarks, his untruths, legally. His lawyers have indicated that he's willing to apologize for a lot of the things that he said. I've given certain instructions to my lawyers in that I've asked them to construct the apology and send it for him to present that apology using the same platforms that he used to disparage my name. Failing that, I will take it to court. But I will not waste time because there is a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
In fact, if I show you what my calendar day looks like, there is hardly a day that I finish work before midnight, hardly a day. There are some evenings, even after I finish my day, I am saying, I have some files on the desk to be done. And I'm driving and the gate at finance is locked up, and I'm sinking my horn for the security to open the gate, for me to go upstairs, to go in there, to go through files, to finish the paperwork and all of that. So I really don't have time for that sort of energy, and I wish not to feed that sort of energy. I realize the media is a fan of him, so you all can continue to engage him, but I just don't give it that much energy, to be quite honest with you.
You recently said that there's going to be a reshuffle coming soon for the Executive Council. Are you prepared at this time to say anything about that, or to make any announcements with us concerned?
No, and I did indicate in that interview that reshuffle became necessary with the party of Mr. Duke, and so I see that there's a need for some more realignment. You would appreciate that prior to now I made the Deputy Chief Secretary a standalone position, and I sought then to put some key areas as responsibility under Mr. Duke, one of which would have included foreign direct investments. One would have included a lot of those international engagements that were even coming my way as Chief Secretary. The current Deputy Chief Secretary is also the Secretary for Health. And that is such a critical area. I can't have my Deputy Chief Secretary, which is the Secretary of Health, out of country too often. I could tell you, even at this moment, I have a standing invitation for India that I just keep postponing, that the Indian government decided that they will pay all the costs for me to be. I just keep on postponing it all year long, postponing it. Recently, I attended World Travel Market, and while there I was reminded that if Mr. Duke was still the Deputy Chief Secretary, he would have been the one to lead that charge on behalf of the government, because I much prefer to stay, given that I also have the Division of Finance. And so given what has happened in this space, there is a need for some minor shifts. And one will appreciate that, your first year, you assign people, you see how they work, you do an assessment, you listen to feedback from the workers in their division, and listen to feedback from people on the ground, listen to what they are saying, and also align the shifts so that you can better serve the people, and you could be much more effective, much more timely in serving of the people. So all of these factors will be what will generate the shifts that are required, but certainly at the appropriate time, I will let the island know about those shifts.
All right, so we're going to just stick a pin right there because we have to take a quick break. But viewers, we'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. And of course, share the live in the meantime. And if you're on the comment section, please remember to be respectful. See you in a little bit.
Spread Christmas joy and cheer with a loan from Lambo Credit Union this year. Get 100% financing for shopping, home renovations, furniture and appliances, debt consolidation and much more. Did we mention no payments until the end of January 2023? Get the most flexible repayment periods and the best interest rates around. Call 639-5060 to book your appointment today. Or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Wishing you a happy holiday from Lambo Credit Union. And remember, we are always here for you.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up and look, 'cause this is your show, and everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up and look. This is your show, and everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
Excuse me, Mr. Man. Playground rhymes. That's why I'm bringing back the playground rhymes.
It's a different type of thing down there. And we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there. Down in Tobago.
Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, viewers. We are continuing our conversation with Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, of course, and he's also the Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy, as well as the Assemblyman for Palataville, Lansome, and Speyside. Now, before we went into the break, we were speaking a little bit about the Executive Council. Now, Chief Secretary said that there is a reshuffle coming soon, a slight reshuffle, a slight realignment. But I also want to know from him. Now, you pointed out that there were some advantages and disadvantages to your team being experienced, because no person on the Executive Council has ever had that position on any previous administration, and this is perhaps historic. So what are some of the disadvantages that you encountered with your inexperienced team?
Well, the one disadvantage will be that you are learning as you go along. You're learning procedure. The things you thought you could do quickly, you're learning that you can't do it quickly. You're having to learn the structure and so on while on the job. That's a disadvantage. But the advantage, which is, I think, superior to the disadvantage, is that you get an opportunity Tobago gets an opportunity to have real fresh eyes. And I'll give you an example. Recently, we had a team visit the Executive Council to make a presentation. I wouldn't call the team's name. And when they were finished presenting, the team leader said, you know, we made the same presentation to a previous executive. And while we made the presentation, everybody was in the meeting sleeping. And then at the end of the presentation, somebody got up and asked, what is in this for me? And they were shocked that they were meeting with an executive, and that was extremely professional, extremely attentive, asking questions, interrogating the thing about the things that were lagging for a long time. We were able to execute in a quick time. And I think, as I said, we have done good, quite good. But of course, there's always room for improvement. There's need to do better.
And what are some of those things that you guys were able to improve quickly?
Oh, well, I'm happy that you asked. One, we are well on our way to transforming Roxborough Health Center into a real hospital. So the time moved to 7 p.m. And we have surgeries and so on operational there. We have been able to begin rehabilitating the botanical gardens. So if you ask why it wasn't lit up and so on, we got the approval and the funding is approved and everything coming from a loan program from the IDB, and that's approved for the redevelopment of the botanical gardens. So no more will you see the dying plants and the grass brown and withering. The thing will look at a certain level and will be heightened and properly improved. We also look at the World Food Day. This has been perhaps the largest World Food Day turnout and experience in a while. That was also done. If you go to Works, you could talk about the fact that we had the smart app. We have patched more holes than holes patched in any 4-year period. We have done patched more holes in 1 year. And it's still not enough, because we still have quite a lot of bad roads. You're talking about the fact having to reconstruct the Castara Road in a matter of not even a year, but in a matter of some weeks after it went away. We're talking about the bridge over Google Patch and all of these things. Little Tobago, you can now land safely in Little Tobago. Before you had to hop off, we had at least 2 incidents where insurance had to pay visitors, tourists, because they wanted to sue the boat operators for injuries in hopping off. That is no more. You're talking about solar panels being installed and lights being installed, solar panel lights being installed on the jetty there. All of that happened in under 1 year. In addition to the things I mentioned before, like the salaries being increased and improving the working conditions of the employees and so on. And all of those things were mandate pledges and things that we are working out.
Now, Chief Secretary, I mean, it's you have quite a list of things that you have done, and you certainly explained some of them. But when you listen to people on the ground, you listen to the rest of the public, it seems as though nothing not enough has been done. It's just still those low-hanging fruit, and it has sparked a level of, criticism to your team, to yourself and your team, that has been unprecedented, with the name calling and so on. How do you deal? How are you treating with that criticism there? Because it seems as though this information is not really getting to them, and it seems as though people are not really seeing what they wanted and hope to see
Well,
for you.
let me put this into perspective for you. I don't know that you could say that people on the ground are not seeing those things. You may be listening to a few on Facebook, and people on Facebook isn't always a reflection of the people on the ground. In fact, if Facebook was a reflection of the people on the ground, we wouldn't win the election so overwhelmingly. Remember? And what has happened is that the name calling, the lies, the slanders, the libelous things being posted online have not ceased since the election. In fact, they continue as part of the strategy of those opposite. And that's fine. If they think that is the best political strategy for them, they can continue with those. But when you talk to the people, the fisher folk, who have experienced some improvements. Look, for example, construction has started on the fishing depot in Palatavie. We had a foundation built for a fishing depot for perhaps more than 10 years. In under 1 year, we have started that construction. You can't say to those fisher folk that nothing has happened in their favor. You can't say to the reef boat operators in Space that nothing has happened in their favor. You can't tell the people in Moriah who had some steps to walk up and the steps were falling off in a precipice, who will now be getting an entire road that they could drive in areas that they could not drive in before. You can't tell them that nothing has happened in their area. When you look at what happened on a Crump Point and the efforts to fix the flooding outside of Cocoa Reef in that area there, to the point where somebody is going and trying to tamper with the pump and the equipment there and so on, you can't tell those persons that no effort has been made there. So people are appreciative of the work that is done. Let me tell you what I hear when I walk the ground, because I can tell you, I still make my own groceries. I still find time to attend christening parties in my district and to shop I've missed some funerals because the time just did not permit, because I have executive council on the day of funeral happening and so on. But I can tell you, the common thread I keep getting from people is stay focused. We're praying for you all. Hang in there. You're all doing a good job, but just keep pushing, keep pushing. So yes, people appreciate that there is more to be done. People appreciate that the magnitude of the mandate is heavy, and there's a lot more work to be done. You're talking about trying to undo and do over 21 years of mess in 4 years. We will certainly try. We will certainly give it a valiant effort. We will certainly try to move as much as we can. And I'll point out another thing too. I have seen firsthand that there are things approved, exec council notes approved for policies, some as early as January, to this point still not completely executed. And that's one of the reasons why I'm saying one of the things we have to work on post haste is how do we motivate the public service, the public servants? How do we make their working conditions better? One of the things I've insisted on is starting to pay people acting. People have been, and I mentioned on this program, pay people acting so they feel motivated to do the work they're supposed to do. People have been acting and acting up for years and can't get haven't gotten their payments and so on.
What's the hold up? Because again, you guys came in on a campaign of let me fix this.
But
you
let me
continue
let me tell you what let me give you an example of what the hold up is. There's a list of positions to be that were classified. When I look at the list, I am seeing cabinet approval for the classification since 2004. What year are we in? Since 2004. Since 2004. And the duty of finalizing that process to allow the positions to be classified, to allow people to not just be acting as if they are movie stars and be confirmed in their position. That actually rests on the hands of of the DPA department and the Public Service Commission all down in Trinidad. Even more reason why we need this autonomy. Even more reason that we need an autonomous public service on the island of Tobago. Because our work is just not getting done. Since 2004, you know how much government's changed in Trinidad since 2004? You know how many public service commissions have changed since 2004? How many new DPAs we have had since 2004? And yet we're still waiting. Yet we're still waiting. And I have frankly gotten to the point where I've said, listen, let us just act. And when we start to act, Trinidad will get up and realize that we're just doing our own thing in Tobago. We're not waiting on them. And you will see how quickly they will start to move.
Now, one of the promises that you made that people kept holding you to was that of the ex gratia payments. And yet we are here 1 year later and we're not seeing the ex gratia
payments.
Well,
I've already given the timeline for the payment of the ex gratia payment. In fact,
but then how do you translate that message though to the people who expected it?
It was said, right? In fact, when I did the presentation in January on the state of the economy, I pointed out that the ex gratia payment will have to come between the end of the fiscal year and the end of the calendar year, which would be around now. And I came later on at a question asked and I regurgitated that response. And then earlier in the month of November, I came and I indicated that preparations are in place to ensure that ex gratia payment can be made before the end of the year. And I already gave notice to the chief administrator so that notice can be given to all the administrators in terms of the execution of that payment. So yes, lots of people will smile this year in.
But a lot of people were not smiling over the past year because, I mean, they saw it as you did not keep your promise to the people.
But that cannot be true. When you look in the mandate, did the mandate indicate a timeline for when the ex gratia payment will be made? I'm asking you. And the answer for that is no. And certainly we are keeping the promise of providing the ex gratia payment.
And then this leads to another question as to like on a grander scale, with a lot of the things that was promised to the people on the campaign trail, of course, under the tagline, "We gonna fix this, let me fix this," right? You know, did you think that you gave false hope or you gave them a bigger expectation than than what would be the reality? Because the reality is that it takes time for certain things to be done. But yet the message coming from the PDP at that point in time is that all of these things would be taken care of.
All of those things are things that require fixing. All of them. All of them. And I don't know that we gave false hope, but that we raised the bar extremely high for would-be secretaries. Not too high, because I have learned in life that the higher you raise the bar, you may not always reach it, but you will certainly end up in the stratosphere. And that's why you don't aim for things on the ground. That's why you aim for stars. You may not get to the star you desire, but certainly you will end up somewhere in the heavens. And that's the point. I want, and we wanted secretaries to understand that when you come into office, the kind of mess that has to be fixed, the kind of challenges that have to be fixed, it requires almost 24-hour duty. And yes, that is hard. And one of the things I try to do is to encourage secretaries to take brief moments so that, you know, their mental health can be treated with. One of the measures I'm about to implement is to find a way to provide free mental health services to members so that in all that they're doing, people can remain grounded and balanced, and so that they don't lose their minds in this great effort to fix this island Tobago. What we experienced over 21 years has been so difficult, so hard, so messy, that this team has no choice but to raise the bar extremely high on what we ought to do. And yes, it is a given, as I pointed out, and I pointed out on the campaign trail, that some of these things won't all happen in 4 years. But this has to be the vision for the Tobago that is required. That has to be the vision. We cannot just keep sitting down and hoping that things will get better. We have to start the efforts now. Put in the work now. So whether I am here 10 years from now or 20 years from now, well, I could tell you for sure, 20 years from now, I will not be here because I'm not trying to break any records of being the longest serving chief secretary. I am not aiming for that at all. So regardless of who is here, we could look back and talk about when that revolution started, when this great fix started, and how we got to this place. But it's going to be messy. It's going to require doing some messy stuff to clean up this place and ensuring that we could get Tobago at the ideal place. And not only that, we are coming on the back end of 2 years of lockdown, 2 years of almost a decimation of our tourism product and our business sector. We are coming on the back end of that. So that too requires some work to get the private sector going again. In fact, the private sector in Tobago was always weak and always very small. But getting it back up and running is also another one of those fixes that is taking some time, but we will get there soon.
Now, the private sector is not exactly pleased with you also because, I mean, they don't see that you've kept a lot of the promises when there are meetings. There were problems with the attendance with some of the meetings, and they are generally displeased. Do they have reason? Do you think that they have reason to be displeased?
I can't tell of any meeting with the private sector that I have not attended or that I have ghosted them. There has been none that I have not attended with the private sector. In fact, all the meetings with the private sector, I called them and invited them. Different sectors invited them. Also, there are other secretaries that have been meeting with the private sector. What I have recognized in this space is some people desire policies for selfish reasons, for reasons so that they could benefit, so that they could cash in and not looking at the larger Tobago picture. It has to be balanced. I could tell you there are some in the private sector who don't think that we should, for example, have raised the salaries for European CPEP. They don't think we should have. They think we should have taken that money and just given it to them instead. And I'm saying a balanced approach is required in the rebuilding effort. And all sectors have been hard hit. And it cannot be lopsided in giving all to one side and not to others. There has to be a balanced approach.
What difference do you think that you have made in the private sector in terms of, you know, improving the economy of Tobago, which, like you said, has suffered for many years, and not just through COVID, but prior to COVID, with the problems with the sea bridge, and even before that?
Let's look at sea and air bridge, and you raise it as an example. And one of the reasons why this autonomy thing has to be taken seriously, and we have to put on an even harder fight, because that is one of the areas which we have limited control over. Caribbean Airlines, there has been no end of back and forth between the government of Tobago and Caribbean Airlines about increasing the sea bridge. Even for Carnival, we weren't pleased for Carnival. And there are many people who wanted to come and couldn't get flights. And then Carnival come on the back end and say, well, we had 7,000 seats that weren't filled. Where were those 7,000 seats? What 7,000 seats they were talking about? And as I mentioned, Carnival, let's look at that as an example. You see, sometimes we create the environment for the private sector, and the private sector not even ready for that environment. On Carnival Sunday morning, I'm at the airport trying to get tickets for Gamal Doyle, Skinny Fabulous Return. It's no secret because I shared a public post that we studied together in Jamaica, so it's somebody I know for a long while. He's trying to get a ticket to St. Vincent. Imagine that a foreign artist came here on the invitation of a private promoter and could not get out on the day and time he wanted to get out. And so I'm helping him to get a ticket to leave. And I encountered some trainees who said, Chief, I have some criticisms of the Carnival. I said, tell me the criticisms. And they said, one thing about us trainees, we like to party long and hard, drink plenty, and eat plenty. He said, we have a problem. I said, well, so where's the problem? He said, since we're here, we get up in the morning, we go to some places, they're saying, oh gosh, you tired we out last night. We couldn't wake up early to open. They go to a pie lady, the pie lady say, she run out of flour, so all she pie is done. They go to the next place, the place closed. And they say, but we wanted to get some authentic Tobago food. Look, we in rituals, we are accustomed to rituals. And in that moment, I said to myself, but here we are, trying to create an environment for the private sector. The figures that Secretary Boris released showed 30,000+ coming to the island in that one period, with an average spend of in excess of $2,000, and willing to spend more. And we had a private sector not ready for those volumes of people, not prepared to take advantage of such an initiative. And I'm saying, but on one end, you can't say, I want. And when an environment is created, when an opportunity is created, you are not prepared, you are not ready. So several things have to happen simultaneously for us to get it right.
Now, as you mentioned the air bridge, one of the things that you did early up in the year, was that you made a move to pay for the airport to be opened a few more hours to facilitate more flights, because that was a concern that the airport was closing at 8:30, I think it was. That was the last flight. And so then the the Executive Council took that decision to pay for the extra money that needed to keep the airport open. Is that still happening?
And guess what? Despite taking that decision and saying it publicly, and also ensuring that the airport authority is ready to accommodate, and all of that, Caribbean Airlines still have not decided to make the flights available. And that's another example. So we're saying, look, we will create the opportunity. We're willing to pay to keep the airport open. Because when we, at the first meeting with Caribbean Airlines, that is the one thing Caribbean Airlines raised as the issue why they couldn't have more flights. After taking that decision, Caribbean Airlines moved the goalposts. Oh, we don't have enough pilots now. A lot of the pilots were sent home during COVID. They had to be recertified. We don't have enough planes. The subvention not enough. They even raised the fee, and still they have not increased the number of flights, notwithstanding the undertaking from the executive that we will pay. I mean, we have not had reason to pay because they just have not made the flights available at the hours that we want them to be available. We have international flights coming into Piaco with people wanting to transit to Tobago. You are telling me that a tourist must come to Trinidad, overnight in Trinidad, and then catch a next flight to get to the destination that they want to get to? That is not the most ideal thing. And we had something good going when the last flight leaving Tobago was sometime after 1 in the morning. And we have just removed that. I want you to also appreciate that we only got some increases in flight only in April. Trinidad opened its airport since last year to international flights. Tobago only got the first international flight in January and only increased the domestic flight in April to only 12 round trips, and nowhere close to pre-COVID number of flights. And guess what? It is a cabinet that is responsible for Caribbean Airlines, a cabinet. We have cabinet members living in Tobago, from Tobago, on the cabinet. And I've asked the question, have they advocated for Caribbean Airlines to do more? Why can't the cabinet take the decision for Caribbean Airlines to offer more? And that's why when I hear the minority talking and the other one who trying to be relevant after nobody vote for him, he ain't win his seat. When I hear them talking, I ask myself, why they're not coming out strongly and demanding more from Caribbean Airlines? We have been the only ones making that demand, the only ones making that demand along with the private sector, the only ones making that demand, the only ones, nobody else. And if tourism is going to be one of the main drivers of our economy, then one of the things that we have to appreciate is that no service-driven economy works without the movement of people, without people being available and people being there. None works without that. None.
Now, I mean, earlier just a little bit ago, we spoke about the cleaning up of the assembly that needs to happen. One of the steps in that happening is audits. And we are yet to see just the final reports on all of these audits. And I know this is a question that has been posed to you before, and you have answered it to some degree, but at the same time, there is that there is an expectation there that, you know, what you delivered in the house is not what can be, you know, it's not the final thing. So, I mean, it's not a reason why you shouldn't use certain contractors here in Tobago and so on. And that's the narrative that's being pushed.
Let me answer
so,
you. Number one, I don't determine what contractors I use or not use. In fact, very rare you have an exec council minute that directly pinpoints which contractor to be used, unless of course the division would have already done its procurement process and determined this is the contractor to be used. So I know the executive determine and should determine who contractors should be used and not used, right? I don't get involved in procurement business at all. When I tell you I don't get involved at all. When, for example, OCS or finance puts out something, sometimes I don't even know it's out. I just give the covering approval for the division to procure the services, and I leave it up to them to find the service providers. So I don't. So let me dismantle that myth. But there is no ban on any certain contractors. What was presented in the House does not change. Those are the facts, and those will not change. The extra steps that were required, and I did in the House say that there were 3 more steps to be done to finalize, the last of which took place last week, in that the auditors took the time out to interview the principals who were involved in the matter, so that they have an opportunity to come and say, this is what happened. This is what guided my process, my decision making process. This is why I did what I did. So that opportunity was given to them. The final of that advice happened last week. And so the facts of what happened will not change. Those are the facts. Those are not going to change. And that's why I felt comfortable sharing those facts. And pretty soon, we will be at the place where several things can happen simultaneously. One, that the report can go to all of the necessary agents that deal with things like fraud, financial crimes, and all of those things. That will happen. We can also be able to reconcile what we owe to contractors, what we really owe, over what was inflated, and continue with some of those payments and ensure that the payments are made. But I have not blacklisted any contractor. I can tell you what I've done. I have had one meeting with the contracting group, several of them. I have met with about 4 or 5 very early in my office, individually in my office, but I have taken a decision that I, as Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Finance, leading this audit exercise, will not meet with any contractor in any one-on-one whatsoever. I set up an independent team that they can meet with, that they can engage, that they can work out their payments, work out some of the conflict issues, and those things are being worked out. Certainly not as fast as I will like, but it is getting done. And certainly, before we get to the end of the year, the first phase of that audit will be completely done, and a big chunk of the cleaning up would have been completed. And that to me will be a great achievement in this first calendar year.
When you hear the criticisms that your administration is taking, utilizing Trinidadian contractors over Tobagonian contractors, do you do any investigation? Do you try to see what's really going on with that concern?
No, of course. And there have been some Trinidad contractors in the space, but there have also been many local contractors in this space who have also been used. Remember, with the tendering process, you can't stop anybody from bidding. What I have done subsequent to that criticism is that I had an exec council note prepared that will give credence to locality by way of electoral district. And that's more than just locality in terms of island. So that in the near future, certain projects, once the level of expertise is resident in the electoral district, certain projects can only be executed by a contractor from that electoral district first and foremost. So when we're talking localizing contracts, we're not talking localizing contracts just in Tobago contracts for Tobagonians. We are talking about some of those contracts becoming localized to the place of electoral district, which means that if there's a painting job to be done in Roxborough, a contractor from outside of Roxborough Argyle should not go up to Roxborough Argyle to do a painting
But
job.
then these are small contracts that are given out and not the large ones.
Those have to also be measured based on level of expertise. Because, for example, if I am doing a jetty, building a brand new jetty in Speyside, I don't know that I have any contractor within the electoral district of Party Bay, Lansmith, Speyside that have done marine works. That's just the reality of it. We must also appreciate that the large contracts that have gone to Trinidad contractors have been design, build, finance contracts, which means that we are asking the contractor to foot the entire bill up front, and that the THA takes its dead time over a long period of time to pay back, because we don't have all the capital up front. And or if we have to do all of those projects and pay all of that money up front, it will significantly hamper how much monies we have for other capital development works. And so in those projects, you will appreciate we are saying in the tendering process, if you're coming to spend all of your money and hire Tobago workers, subcontract to Tobago subcontractors, use Tobago hardwares to get the material.
So is that requirement to at least subcontract to Tobagonians?
No, that requirement is definitely there. It is there. But I'm just making the point.
And is it unrefutable? Because, I mean, we have that criticism constantly coming.
It is not just unrefutable, but I'm also saying that in all of those contracts where Trinidadian contractors got the nod, those contracts, those major contracts that were bandied about in space were in essence design, build, finance contracts, where the contractors were required to put all the money up front and the THA take its dead time to pay them. In fact, for example, that road you see that everybody loves now, passing by Scarborough RC, everyone is saying the fastest way to get out of town is through that road. That road there, payments to that road doesn't begin until quite next year, about June. Quite next year. Look how long it's finished. So more than a year after the project is completed.
And do we have a plan
it's going to start?
And do we have a plan to make sure that when we are paying those bills,
right,
that it's not going to hamper other development projects?
So what we decided to do purposefully is to break these payments down into very small payments. Payments that can be managed in any fiscal year, even if the THA gets the minimum of about 250 million to 300 million for capital development. And that means that for some of these projects, payments will continue well into our third year, fourth year, and hopefully fifth year into office and so on. That is breaking down the payments into a period that is manageable by the assembly and manageable by what we are accustomed getting for capital development. But I assure you, there is no concerted effort to say we are keeping out some contractors and keeping in others. But what I could tell you, that there is a concerted effort by some of the contractors who are guilty of ripping off Tobagonians for trying to muddy the waters. I am very suspicious that they are the sponsors of the discord that happened in the PDP. I am also very much aware that they have been meeting with certain quote-unquote notable people, quote-unquote credible voices, trying to do their biddings. Because when you see some certain credible voices, some who are big economists and so on, coming to beg for some of those same contractors who are guilty of ripping off the island and who in some cases receive monies for works not even done, not even completed, you start to question the credibility. You start to question the morals of some of those people. But the truth is, I am choosing to wait on them because the time will come when I will be able to speak forcefully about those who have found themselves in strange beds, because those with nefarious intent have been sponsoring what they think will be discord, things that will distract, things that will mash this up, because they know that once the audit is final, that they will have questions answered before a court of law, and they don't want to have that happen. But I tell you, if it's one thing that will happen, is that they will go to court and answer for why an attempt was made to defraud the state, and in some cases, why was the state defrauded? Because if you receive payment for works done, you have a certificate of completion in your hand for works done, and when you go there, you say not a single road was done, then you ask yourself the question, what are the intent of those people? And are those the people that we should be allowing to drive our public political discord? Some of those are ones, they're making their long posts on Facebook, and I'm seeing them, screenshotting them and just sending them to the lawyers so that we could look at it. Because I tell you, I will ensure that the state will take action against them.
Now, there's also that narrative being formed out there that some of these contractors that we are using from outside of Tobago may have funded the campaign. Is there any truth to that?
No, there's no truth to that. And, well, let me measure it. There is no truth to that insofar as I am aware. Right? I could tell you, as a person who led the team, the funds I am aware of that came for the campaign are very small funds. The largest I have seen is somebody donating $10,000 to the campaign. And in fact, that 10,000 wasn't donated for the campaign. That 10,000 was donated to assist with buying tablets and for children, which was done. Our campaign was run a lot on people receiving a lot of small donations. And I could say that without anybody throwing anything in my face. I can assure you, nobody know about come and give me Fali Augustine any bag of money anyway. I assure you of that 100%. And I assure you that as far as I am aware and I could account for, that we ran a campaign on very, very small donations. In fact, most of us as members, we spent a good 2-3 months post-winning paying back debts. Some only finished paying off debts about 2 months ago, because every month we get a salary, we go and we pay off some of the debt, That's how we paid off some of our debts, especially our election day expenses. We paid off some of that. I can't speak to the fact if the party as a whole, through its political leader or through any other member of the team who might be currently secretaries now, receive other funding outside of what I'm aware of. But I could tell you for a fact that what we received were very small donations. And one of the things that we have been struggling to get, we were struggling to get as a party, was even a bank account. We keep carrying the information, and every time we carry information, the bank requiring something else and something else and something else. That has been a constant struggle for the PDP to get over as a hurdle. We do have one account had one account at Royal Bank. I'm just talking about former. That's no longer my concern and my business. Notwithstanding, we also took a decision as a team that all the debts we incur, that we still have to pay down. So we are still paying down, for example, on our back to school drive, because the need was so great that we extended beyond even some of what we had funds for. So we still paying that down, and paying it down by pooling our resources and paying off that debt ourselves. And we give a commitment that those debts that we incurred under what was formerly PDP Force, we will still pay them down and satisfy those debts, because we were a part of the incurring of those debts. So this notion that these people are party financiers and so on, I'm not aware of that. And what I also find very strange is that the people who outspent us on the campaign, right? Anybody ask them who their party financiers were? I wonder if their financiers were the same people they were paying for works not done. I wonder if they were paying money for works not done, or works not done to scope, works done that were incomplete, paying them exorbitant sums so that they can in turn fund their campaign. I suspect that is how the PNM got their monies for their campaign. If you look at the last campaign, the PDP had one live national television broadcast on TV6. You know that happened? That happened on the last day, the last meeting we had down at Roverness, the last meeting. And that's when we were able to pull up our resources and do this one last live broadcast that we did. And it was a simulcast well, we did Channel 5, we did, and we still owing Channel 5, let me say it, we still owing them monies. On Channel 5, on TV6, and Radio Tambourine. We run against a team that you couldn't watch the news in peace in Trinidad. They booked out all the prime spots during news on all the national television stations. You will swear it was a national campaign. I asked myself the question, if those same contractors who were making noise for, and some of the same people in the private sector who are making noise now, if they weren't some of the same ones who took the money and give it to the PNM hoping they will win, that nobody will know about all of the madness that happened in the lead up to the election. The former THA took $165 million from bond financing, and the money went through to THA like a dose of salt. It just wired over to infrastructure. All sort of madness was done to was paid for with that $165 million. In fact, there were instances, I am advised, where monies were moving from the Division of Finance without written warrants being done before, and the written warrants were being done after the fact, and that in itself is an illegal activity. Right. All of those things happen. And so when you hear people trying to cry foul and make the most noise, there's a saying I learned in Jamaica, which is, don't watch the noise in the market, watch the sales. Don't watch the noise, watch the sales. Look, dig deeper, see where the alliances are being formed. Because politics have a way of creating strange bedfellows. And there are many strange bedfellows. And I could tell you, some will be jumping out any moment from now. But I'll be waiting patiently on all of them. Okay. Because I will have my say when I am done. When they are done. When they jump out, I will have my say.
And I think this is a good point for us to take a little pause and go to a quick break. And when we come back, we are jumping in further with Chief Secretary Fali Augustine as we look back in this past year of him as at the helm of the THA administration.
MI4 Security Services Company is the most advanced security service in Tobago. Ask about our cash in transit service. It's safe, risk-free, reliable, and timely. We provide safe banking delivery for all business types and sizes with highly trained staff, 24/7 monitoring, coordinated emergency response, and a well-maintained fleet of armored vehicles. Contact us at 660-7723 or visit our website at www.mi4securitytt.com to sign up today.
Was a while before Christmas, and all through the land, people was putting away house with very little money in hand. They was painting and cleaning and doing their chores, but I went to hunt for deals at American stores. Deals on living and dining room sets, on fridges and stoves, beds and cabinets, on washers and dryers, small appliances cheap. Even TVs and stereos, prices just can't be beat. So let's Christmas together at American stores. After all, what they tell me, anything could be yours.
Anything can be yours at American stores.
Whole Life helps me secure their future, provides financial protection with added benefits. Whole Life, the affordable financial benefits plan. Tattoo Life, guaranteed protection.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supply specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
The Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection is moving to better serve you. Turn left onto Glen Road, another left onto Montessori Drive. Welcome to the new location of the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection.
Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorns Place with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorns Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Excel Spa by Haley, where our highly trained staff are ready to deliver the top-class services in facial massages, waxing, nail enhancement and body treatment. We are ideally located at Coco Avenue, Switzerland, Tobago. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TripAdvisor, or you can call us on 730-0149. Excel Spa by Haley. Relax, renew, and rejuvenate.
Welcome. It's Christmas time at Le Marge Parfait Day Spa.
Feliz Navidad.
Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Now, viewers, we are continuing our discussion with Chief Secretary Fali Augustine as we get into it about the past year of him in leadership. You know, he was once under the PDP. He's no longer under the PDP, and it's made for an interesting time. But now I want to look at what's happening where accounting is concerned in the THA, because we know that's something that has been a long-standing issue. It's been something that's been raised by the Auditor General time and time again. And yet we are seeing that people are being paid late, workers are being paid late continuously when your team promised that this would be a thing of the past.
And that is one of the pledges that upsets me the most, because I believe that people deserve to get their salaries on time. Many people live paycheck to paycheck, especially given the state of the global economy, the food inflation prices. People depend on their salaries. And you know, the thing became particularly vexing for me when at the last iteration, the URP workers and the delivery workers out of the Division of Infrastructure were not paid on time. And I am asking, but why? You're looking on their accounts. They have all the monies there to pay the staff. And then the reasons you're getting is people going on vacation, nobody wants to take up the extra work. And I'm saying, but that is actually the duty, the management duty of the administrator of a division, which is the accounting officer for a division. So, for example, when a request for leave comes to the desk of an administrator, one of the questions that must be asked, how is this going to, what was the impact of this on my part, on this particular department? Do I need to move somebody else into the department? Do I need to take on somebody as short term to fill the gap while the person, all of these questions have to be asked and answered. It can't be we wait until we get to the place where people are just not being paid because I have a manpower shortage, or people had stayed home, so we had lots of truancy and so on. Another element in the problem is that motivating factor of a lot of people are asked acting positions for which they have not been paid for years. So what is happening is that people are now reluctant to take up acting positions because they have asked to act. The THA has not paid them for years because somebody is saying, well, we ain't get some confirmation from Trinidad yet, so you hold on. But my position is, and I got a legal opinion, and the executive gave that instruction. I see it was not fully carried out, and so I indicated let's do an executive council note and make it a minute, so that will be an instruction that they have to carry out, that once somebody is acting in a position, pay them their salaries for that acting appointment. You don't need to wait on any paper from Trinidad or anything from Trinidad to pay them. Because at the end of the day, even if the relevant officers in Trinidad returns and says someone else must hold that position substantively, you have to pay the person for the period that they worked. So you might as well pay them now. And in the absence of that, we have a lot of staff members who are quite frankly demotivated, who feels like, I should not take up any promotion. I shouldn't go and take any lateral moves because I'm just not going to get paid for it. I'll be doing all of this work and not going to be remunerated properly for it. And that has resulted in quite a demotivated staff. And one of the things that we pitch in this year, this fiscal year, and I spoke about it, is the need for us to design a program to keep the staff members motivated, keep them happy, wanting to come to work, get them to that place of feeling patriotic. So yes, while I criticize heavily the fact and condemn the fact that people are paid late, I'm also saying, let us work on rectifying that. And if part of the problem is the motivation factor, let us work on that. If the factor is HR related, let us work on those HR issues. But it remains unacceptable that people are paid late. And I could tell you from the Division of Finance, we do the needful. When I tell you we do the needful, sometimes you are requiring the division to send the request for releases, because that's part of the system. They send the request for releases, you get the sign-off from the secretary and the administrator, the necessary warrants and so on are prepared, and that too is signed off on, and then the money is released. And sometimes, down to the wire, we're calling divisions, we're calling administrators, we're saying, please send your request, we need to have that in writing. It has to be part of the system. That's the accounting procedure. And we're pushing, and sometimes we work late into the night. The Budget Department of Finance will work late into the night to get it done. I could tell you on Sunday, while the staff at the division was having a treat for the children, all the staff members pitched in $150 and so on, and come together to have a treat for the children. While that is happening, I have a director of finance saying, are going upstairs to do some work to make sure that the divisions have their releases so that they could pay their people on time. And notwithstanding all of those efforts, sometimes people are not being paid on time. And quite frankly, that is unreasonable. It is unacceptable, and we have to do better. We have to do better. And notice, I am not saying they have to do better, because although I have done my part, and although I know a secretary goes into accounts and do up the timesheets and ensure they're correct, and we're not working in the computer room to generate the pay slips, and we are not the ones working in check staff and so on, although we are not physically doing that ourselves, I am saying this team is joining with the public servants and saying, look, we are responsible. We need to remedy this situation. We need to find ways around it. And I should not have to write another threatening letter saying, if people aren't paid on time, then I will make recommendations for disciplinary action to be started against public servants because there is dereliction of duty. I should not have to write another letter like that, because we have to work collectively to remedy that. And it's It's part of a larger problem. And let me give you a next example. I received a letter recently from a service provider in the security industry. And in that letter, the service provider, he points out all the divisions that owe his company money. The company needs to pay staff. You're talking about not paying the company for months for security services. And when I did the calculation, we well gone past $1 million across the whole THE. And when you ask, I mean, it's a 400,000 there, 200,000 there. And I'm saying, but why are we just not paying the people? We have a contract with this company. Just pay them. It's part of the monies you receive for recurrent expenditure. Do the checks. Sit down and do the work. I really don't know why. And it's a disease that is taking longer than a year to fix, because you're talking about changing ingrained culture. You're talking about people saying, well, he ain't need that money right now. You could wait. We're calling and harassing me for is about changing that culture and ensuring that when a purchase order comes before you, the needful is done. And I'll give you two more examples. You will have, accounting staff will have a request stay, a purchase order, and so on. Even if there is no money in the vote as yet, you will expect the accounting staff to do up all the paperwork. So as soon as the money is hit the vote, then you can issue the payments. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So that delays the process. Let me give you another classic example with the case of CPEP, and I raised it in the House. When we just came into office, and this thing of late payment and start now,
been going on for some time.
When we came into office, we met categories of workers and paid for 3 fortnights, 4 fortnights straight, that kind of thing. We said, but what kind of madness is this? How they pay the people whole Christmas time, they pay the people and so on. This is Christmas time, is December. We need to pay the people. So we're trying to meet. Remember, secretaries were sworn in on the 10th of December. Election won on the 6th. We were sworn in as members of the House, and Chief Sec and Deputy Chief Sec sworn in on the 9th. And on the 10th of December, we saw in secretaries. So you are walking your district for the first time on the 13th of December, Monday the 13th of December, and you are meeting people not paid for 3 and 4 fortnights. And so I'm calling to them and saying, but this is madness. We have to fix this issue quickly. An exec council note was done so we could try to pay the CPEP workers who were outstanding and the development workers in Agri who were outstanding. See, the CPEP department, the accounting staff said it requires $7 million. We made it available in a jiffy so they could get the payment. Only to them be told, well, you know that $7 million only take care of 1 fortnight. We still owe them for 2 more fortnights. And I'm like, but okay, you owe them for 3 fortnights. This is a new administration. We wouldn't know that. You are making the request for the release. By God, just request what is needed for all that we have to pay them for the 3 fortnights. So it means then we have to go back and do the process all over again for the other 2 fortnights. And I'm saying, but that cannot be how we do business. And sometimes we yearn, and if you listen to the other secretaries as they speak, one of the frustrations is that you come into this thinking, I could move in the way the private sector moves, in that, the instructions can be given, the exec council minutes can be done, everything can be done, and we'll get it done quickly. It will happen quickly. And then months later, it just doesn't happen.
But Chief Secretary, how do you respond to that criticism, especially coming from the minority, that you are unfairly blaming the public servants for some of these issues, when you yourself said before the elections that the responsibility lies at the feet of the secretary when people do not get paid on time?
Well, you notice I just said we have to work on it. And notice I was very purposeful in saying that while a secretary or an assistant secretary nor the chief secretary has to go down and do the accounting work and all of that, while we don't get involved in that at all, I am saying we, the collective, have to work on it. We, as an island, have to work on it. So there's enough blame to go around the place. So I have not divorced myself from the situation and saying them have to work on it. I'm saying we have to work on it. Right. We have to put some measures to remedy that. We have to find a way to motivate our public servants and ensure public servants feel important and feel like they are coming to work in the best place on the best island and feel like every day I could give 110%. We have to get to the place where we don't see another person coming and asking every minute, me check ready as a threat. And we move away from this culture where we like to watch each other money. So why you have to get paid for this? Why you have to collect this money here? And you think, I just put it down on our side. We have to get to the place where when someone is on vacation, we feel okay and say, these are the tasks that this officer used to do. We are going to split up the task among ourselves and get it done so that the work doesn't get halted. We, the collective, have to work on it. So in no way am I or the team saying it's only the public servants at fault. What we have been at pains explain is the process that goes into people getting pay, because we hear some wrong things in the space. I saw people saying, well, Farley start this new financial system, and that is what resulted in people getting paid. Furthest thing from the truth. And so in an attempt to let people know what's the process, how you get paid, how daily rate of pay is actually process and understanding what must happen, who must do what, is so that people will understand how we, the collective, can work on fixing those things. And one of the challenges I put out to the entire team when I had the administrators in the same room with the secretaries at the beginning of November was to look at the financial regulations and look at our processes and see if there are ways we could make the process much more efficient, if we could digitize a lot more of the process. So we're not looking to have timesheets done. Timesheets come in, have to be checked by somebody, sign off, sent up to administrator, sign off, go to computer room, they pay roll out by the computer. Then that had to go back to somebody, enter into the necessary votes and so on. Then you have to begin to process the pay, and then you're looking at checks moving from one place to the next. In some divisions, they do ACH and all of that. Can we shorten that process and make it much more efficient? Those are the kinds of conversations that we are having for the first time.
And how far are we along in digitizing the process?
Well, we are pretty far along in digitizing the process. What is happening now, we have one challenge where I had to indicate to the central bank that we need their intervention so that the commercial banks in Tobago will respond favorable to the process. Remember, the THA is one of 3 departments or divisions that the government is rolling out the IFMIS program in. In Trinidad, the government uses the central bank as its bank. In fact, central bank is the government's bank. In Tobago, we use First Citizens Bank for the most part as the THA's bank. And so the central bank has allowed some width in terms of the kind of digital platform and so on to be used by the ministries there. And the banks in Tobago are saying, you need to get central bank permission to give us permission to do that in our banks, because that is not in our current process and policy and so on. So we're just trying to fix those red tapes so that we could roll out 100%. That's one of the red tapes that we're looking to fix. And also the division of finance is the first division that we want to lead out with, to start with. It is the smallest division by way of number of people. And so it's the easiest place to work with, where if a mistake is made, it won't take as much to correct the mistake. So that by the time we roll out across all the other divisions fully, we will get to the place where we are masters at this thing. We have already begun to condense the number of banking accounts we have from 100 and something to 50 something to 4 primary bank accounts, so that we don't have monies all over the place, so that from a central place we could see monies moving in and out and keep better accounting. And that's one of the issues you raised about the Auditor General always flagging us about our accounting procedures. And that's one of the reasons why I'm pushing so hard for us to go digital, so that there will always be a digital record of that which is done. Even if you shut down the computer, even if the computer fails, there will be a digital record stored within our database system, our cloud storage system, and so on. And that is absolutely critical, because I don't want some years from now, when I'm no longer here, and you're looking back at Auditor General reports for the times that we govern, that you could see that we still cannot account for our expenditures and account for some of the things that we are doing in this space.
And what about in terms of that conversation that needs to happen with central government? Now, we had Mr. Niall George on the show with us saying that, you know, he does not have a relationship with the correspondent minister of utilities. You know, he was invited to a function and then uninvited. There's a few secretaries that pointed out that there are problems with the relationships between the direct minister, where there are responsibilities, you know, shared in terms of public utilities and so on. Now, how has your conversation? What is the team's conversation like with central government to make sure things do happen in Tobago?
There are some instances where that happens. I wouldn't say it's in the majority that sort of absence of a relationship takes place. I think that's actually in the minority in terms of having the conversations. What we have seen happen is that we will have nice conversations, polite conversations, get agreement around the table, and then it seemed like they just ignore the requests and ignore what needs to be done. What happened in the instance of Mr. George and at the divisional settlement should not have happened at all. It's a complete breach of the THA Act. Complete breach. And I should have perhaps done like Mr. Orville London and come to the public and cry foul and say it's a breach of protocol and that they're disrespectful, right? And perhaps even say they're damn disrespectful too. That you could invite and then uninvite a secretary and then you come into the island. In fact, I wasn't even aware this was happening. It's only after the fact I saw that the boosters were open and so on, and nobody said anything to anybody. Nobody even had the courtesy of inviting anybody and so on. And the truth is, and that's why I see a lot of those opposites as hypocrites with capital H's. Because had that happened while they were in office and another government in Trinidad, then they would have been squealing to the high heavens. And I heard not one member of the minority, not one member of the irrelevant political leader trying to be relevant talk to that issue or saying, nah, that was a wrong move and we apologize. Not one single member have done that. But we have been trying our best to have cordial relationships. I have had one meeting with the Minister of Public Utilities. I have had some telephone conversations with him, not since the opening of the boosters, but before that. And those conversations, I will tell you, were cordial. Those conversations were all well intended. And there's an agreement. There was an agreement at least that he will come to Tobago and we will meet up and we will have the discussions going forward and so on. He did WhatsApp sometime after the booster incident to say, well, we still need to meet. I have not responded to his WhatsApp as yet because I want to keep polite because, I mean, you're on the island. Come on, if you really wanted to meet, if you have my number to WhatsApp me post the event, you can WhatsApp me and say, hey, we had these boosters finish and we want to come and open them, or we need to meet up and so on. That conversation was not had before, right? I will respond to him because there are some issues with public utilities on the island that requires some fixing, requires some work, and it's something that we will work on.
What about your relationship with Dr. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? Are you guys meeting regularly, quarterly, as per the THA Act?
Well, the THA Act just says regularly. It doesn't give a time frame. I don't know if regularly means quarterly. We have not met in person. I can't remember how long we have met. It's been a while since we have met in person. He, from time to time, will WhatsApp about some needful things, and I will also, from time to time, WhatsApp about some needful things. But that's as far as the conversation goes. It's I don't know how you count frequently. Certainly, we don't WhatsApp each other weekly, and certainly there are some months we just don't WhatsApp each other at all. So I really don't know what frequent means and how often that should be. We have not met physically in a long time as a meeting. We have been at some events at the same time, And so naturally, we will have some conversation there, but that is not the place to discuss matters of state necessarily. So like when he popped up at Blue Food, or he popped up at, last time I saw him was when he popped up at World Food Day, down at Dwight York, but that's not the place for matters of state. And certainly that popping up is just a high and by, is not really a conversation. So I really don't know how to answer your question in terms of, because the law just says we should meet frequently, and that I can be invited to cabinet meetings. That could mean once per quarter, that could mean once every 6 months, that could mean once per year, because frequently speaks to the word of frequency, and I guess it's frequency as often as is possible.
All right. And then what about in terms of making sure that, you know, there is that necessary collaboration for things that are under the remit of central government, that there is that collaboration happening here with Tobago?
Well, I'm making sure of it, right? I'm making sure of it. And there has been instances where ministers will reach out to ensure that the collaboration happens. So, for example, the Minister of Finance reached out, I think it was Friday last week, asking for the request for releases to treat with the ex gratia payments to the medical workers.
Right.
That was promised. So when I checked in yesterday, the information came from Health to the Budget Department as Finance, and the Budget Department at Finance was preparing it yesterday to send down to their counterparts in the Ministry of Finance. So in instances like that, that reaching out has happened in many instances. And I will be a liar if I say that that does not happen in many instances.
Now, you've spoken a lot about autonomy and the need for autonomy based on things not being able to happen when you want it and the way you want it to happen, for that change to happen, for that fixing to happen here in Tobago. What have your administration done over the past year to further the call for autonomy?
Well, more than further the call for autonomy, what we have been doing is planning. What we have been doing is looking at what was proposed and refining it. You will notice that it popped up again in the legislature agenda for this parliamentary year. And we are at a point where we are prepared at January morning to begin our public consultations or public conversations on the matter. One of the questions we have been asking ourselves, though, is there another way in which we can do this? Because I feel like when I listen to a lot of Tobagonians, they feel like every time this pops up, we have a set of consultations, people come around and we talk, and then it doesn't happen on the back end. And the question I have challenged the team and challenged all those in the space, including the members of the advisory council, that includes Mr. Charles, is what are some of the other strategies we can employ now to get this done? Is there another route that we can take? We are also hoping to open in January that office in Trinidad to lead that advocacy. The office has already been procured and settled on and paid for, and we're looking as January morning comes to have that open to move process in terms of that kind of advocacy. I'm not sure where along the parliamentary agenda that exists in terms of the matter of autonomy, but we have to do some strong advocacy in the Trinidad space. In my presentation, I called for two things. I said we have to have a unified approach. I indicated that I will use the measure pointed out in the act that you made mention of to start the conversation all over again with Dr. Rowley, Prime Minister Dr. Rowley, on the matter, just to start that conversation, but it has to be a unified approach, going to Trinidad and saying, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is how it can be done, this is how it should be done. When we were in minority, remember, we took a motion to the House asking for all of us to go down and to talk to both sides in Trinidad and try to convince both sides to give Tobago what is best for Tobago. Of course, that was rejected because they had a notion, well, the other side is all the people, go and talk to them, which really and truly is not the case. And I could say that without any condemnation that that we don't have a side in Trinidad. We perhaps had a side when we were PDP, given that PDP has a Trinidad outfit, but we no longer have a side that is in Trinidad. And so we will collectively need to go and do the work. I would tell you this, when the last bill was brought, we sat down at a team. We were spending weekends, a team led by Dr. Remy, independent senator. We had reps from all sides, PNM side, PDP side. I was there. Dr. Faith was part of it. Mrs. Davison Celestine was there. Mr. Dennis was there. Mr. Charles was there. Nicosi Phillips was there. All of us were in the same space. Civil Net was also represented. All of us were in the same space, looking at the thing. We went through line by line and pointed out the deficiencies and said, okay, these are things that we need to remedy and fix and so on. And by the time we turned around that we were to write to Trinidad to say, this is what we need to do, only Mr. Charles and I were there signing that letter that went to Trinidad. Only Mr. Charles and I. Notwithstanding an attempt to have a unified front going down. And at the point I said, but if you're serious about this thing, you will genuinely listen to the people in Tobago who were saying that what you brought was insufficient and will open us up for some problems in the future. These are the fixes. And they were just unwilling to listen to those fixes. And they were just saying, we will get 6.8, take whatever we get, sell out Tobago and take the 6.8%. That is what they were essentially saying. And we were saying, no, 6.8 is good, but let us fix these glaring issues that we have cited in the document. And we just didn't get their buying from that at the last moment.
Now, there's also that criticism that's coming towards the administration that there are these communications issues, people trying to reach out to you, they're not getting on to you. There's also that criticism that perhaps that you all, the power is getting to your head and you have lost touch with the people on the ground. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Myself and the secretaries, we continue to walk our ground. Notice I told you earlier that you have a chief secretary who finding time to go at a christening party on a Saturday night, right? To sit down among his people and to talk with his people and lime and hang out with his people. What is certainly changing and is much more difficult, and I could tell you, when I started as chief secretary, every single week, I chose a path to walk the district. It's not possible every week for me to do that every week. I've had to stagger it, sometimes every other week, sometimes probably once a month. Sometimes I only manage to attend 1 out of 3 funerals that happen in the space of a month, because sometimes the funeral happen on an executive council day, which is a Wednesday, and I just can't attend. And so what happened before being secretaries is not completely possible, and I want us to be reasonable. When we were 6'6", we never left the ground. Every day we out there. That's certainly not possible now. And so certainly some of that interaction cannot be as everyday and as frequent as they are accustomed to. You know, as we were able to when we did not have this other responsibility. And it is also one of the reasons when we looked at this autonomy bill, one of the concerns I raised is about whether or not we shouldn't be divorcing the executive from the House in general and have full-time area representatives, remunerate them as full-time representatives, right? Because I could tell you the salary Mr. Morris makes is insufficient for the work that is required for him to do, or a minority member will make insufficient for the amount of work they need to do. So we need to make the members full-time members of the House, separate the executive from the area reps. So area reps will have a duty to just remain on the ground day by day by day by day, never leaving at all, not having to do any other divisional work, just doing that alone, and they can in turn hold the executive to account so that the executive can produce the things that are required for their respective, for the respective electoral districts that are represented by the area reps. That's one of the issues that we raise even when we look at the last bill and some of the
but that can't happen right now. I mean, right now.
Right, and it speaks to the larger issue, Candice, which is this autonomy issue that we have been talking about for the longest while. And I will tell you, there are some people, especially younger people, when I talk to some of them, they say, but we're tired here about it. We have been talking about it for a long time. It ain't happening, right? One of the reasons why it is so critical is because some of those fixes that we desire can only come with a change in structure and change in legislature. That's the reality. So we have to balance time. And I'll give you another example. Last week, Wednesday, the era rep for Lekato, when the young man was killed, couldn't even go attend the funeral. We had exec council. And after exec council, so we'll run in there. You know what time we reach in there sometime after 7, maybe 8 in the night, because that was the time we were through with exec council. We had about two presentations from 2 groups at the exec council and all of that. So by the time we finished our needful at this level, it was in the night. And guess what? In the night, we still found the time to go up there in the night. Now in the past, you know what happened? Farley probably would have been cooking the corn soup. Farley would have been there for the wake. Farley would have opened the church door and be there. Farley might have been officiating at the church service for the funeral. But it's just not possible at that level. And so, but it is a balance. It is a balance that area reps, including myself, have to work on getting. And some people have not gotten the mojo quite right. And it has taken a while to get the flow quite right for some people. But I believe they are getting the flow right now in being able to spell the times and make the times available. Meaning that in some instances, when you could have spent half a day, you might be able to spend 3 hours, or you might have to give up some time on the weekend and all of that. So it
But
is
Mr. Augustine, I mean, you've also been accused of sometimes like not answering people's calls or not answering people's messages, but then responding to things on Facebook or on social media.
Well, I'm not sure about responding to things on Facebook or social media. I'm sure if you check my Facebook, and that's another thing, if you check my Facebook, you could count the last set of status that I've placed there. Most have been related to the disaster.
Right.
I don't have time to respond. I could tell you that I have people that handle my Facebook pages. So if you see things happening on Facebook, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's Farley posting it on Facebook or Farley posted it on social media. I have people who do some of those postings. So that's the reality. I'm sure when I leave this show, I'm sure I will have no less than 20, 25 missed calls in the period here. And when I leave this show, I have an interview to do immediately afterwards, immediately via Zoom. And then I have to get to Mason Hall for an engagement, then back to the library for a meeting, then for a prize giving function. So if you look at how close the events are, the truth is it's very easy to miss a call, and it's very easy that by the time you go back and you check your phone, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but if you have an iPhone, you realize that if you have over a certain number of calls, at certain points, some of the calls are erased. Some of the missed calls are erased. So the earlier set of calls to the day will get lost forever. Like I wouldn't even know that the missed call was made. So that happens too in the whole mix of things. Also, what I have recognized is that, and I'm torn because the internal clients of the THA, when I'm talking internal clients, I'm talking members of the exec, I'm talking administrative staff, public servants. They feel I am too accessible, right? So they think,
well, that's something.
They think I should not be allowing people to walk in off the streets, and if they're walking off the streets, I will try to make some time to meet with them. They think I should not. When I have my public days, I could tell you the last public day I had, at minutes to 11 in the night, we were still engaging with the public. in the public day, they think some of those things are not necessary. They think that I should not agree positively every time a church, a youth group, a community organization, every time they invite me to an event, I should not try to meet it and attend. I shouldn't try to go. They think that is being too accessible. So that's the internal clients.
Yes.
But the internal clients think I should spend more time sitting down in the office. I should spend more time finding time to meet with them. But then on the other side, there is the public that's saying, but we want to see you some more. We want to have more of you. And then there is a third side, which is my electoral district. And you know my electoral district is spoiled when it comes to Farley. Farley is like salt in his electoral district. That is what it was like. Moving from being in every single thing, not missing a single beat. Once a pan knock, I am there, front and center, ready to assist, ready to be a part of it. Moving from that, and missing the funeral of the oldest man in the village of Charlottesville because I had exec council on the same day and had another engagement after that will take some getting used to and some management of time. But again, as I indicated, no excuses. It is a steep learning curve. And I started off the show by saying we have done good, but there is better and best to be done. I started off the show by saying that while acknowledging all the good that was done, and you're right, we are guilty of not communicating some of those things. We're guilty of not being in people's faces saying, hey, we just did this. Hey, this is happening. Hey, that is happening. And what we will do, what will be happening is that we'll actually be publishing the list of all the achievements, and we'll be publishing it as a pull-out in the paper, all the achievements for this weekend, so that you could have it, you could look at it, and you could do your assessment yourself. We'll publish it online, so you can look through the list of things, see for yourself all the many, many things that happen across the year, the last 12 months. And I'm also saying that this is an administration saying we want to even top that. We want to even do better than that. We want to achieve even more. We want to fix some of the age-old problems that we have. And yes, fixing some of those age-old problems will not happen with the waving of a magic wand. But we are saying they will happen, and we are working diligently at ensuring that they happen.
Now, Chief Secretary, you are celebrating today 1 year of being in office. But
well, to be corrected, this is 1 year of winning
the election.
But when being in office will be the 9th and 10th of the month.
But in 6 days, on the 12th, you'll be also celebrating your 1 year anniversary. And you are getting prepared to be a father. So congratulations in both respects, you know, your 1 year anniversary as well as, you know, your impending fatherhood. How are you adjusting to that while taking on this humongous task of leading the Tobago House of Assembly?
I can't tell you, and perhaps this is an advice as a married man. I can say that getting married and starting a new career at a new job, I'd like to see politics as a career, but a new job, a new task at such an intense level is not for the faint of heart, and perhaps not for every couple, and perhaps not advisable because it won't work for every couple. One reason why I love my wife so dearly is because I have an extremely patient wife, extremely supportive, extremely kind. I have the kind of wife who, when she sees the days are long, I could go home and meet a hot bowl of fish broth and she'll say, you know, you have to build back your strength and so on. Getting a child in the mix, of course, is going to add another dynamic. I have already begun doing some, and that's another reason why I will be doing some shifts in terms of the Executive Council. But I also have started doing some transitioning, whereby the billing at finance posed some challenges. The AC has been down for a long while. The regulator went out. the roof. I met the roof leaking like badly. And so we have some OSHA issues, and so the staff is sort of working around it. And that has provided an opportunity for me to begin a transition to the office at the residence. So now I try to handle all of the file and paperwork out of the office at the residence, because I intend that when the baby comes, to have some paternity leave, granted that based on the way the law is constructed, once the chief secretary is in the country, no one else can act on his behalf. Similarly, the prime minister cannot take a vacation and remain in the country. Someone else, nobody could act on his behalf if he's in the space, the physical space of the country. But notwithstanding, I plan to do a lot more work from home, but will come out to have the meetings and have the engagements at the office, and then return to the residence. I could tell you that I am certain I have had more official meetings and engagements at the residence than any previous chief secretary. I have, fortunately or unfortunately, because you have to appreciate it also at the moment, our private space where we live as well. But I have fully utilized that space almost like a public space as well. I don't know if that is a healthy thing, as one of the measures to sort of work around the fact that there is a pregnancy, and there have been some difficult moments in the pregnancy as well. I have only missed to date one scheduled doctor's appointment. So I make it a duty to schedule my time to allow for me going there with the wife. When the baby comes, I'm being warned by every parent to be prepared for some sleepless nights in the earlies, to be prepared to be there along with the wife and to assist and so on. But, you know, I also see it as an opportunity to provide an example for what a healthy relationship can look like. And I have been very public about my love and expression of my love and expression of intimacy. I've been very, very public about that, not shy about that at all, because I think there is always a need for people who are married we always hear the stories of when people divorce. We always hear the stories of when the woman tossing out the man clothes in a garbage bag and all kind of thing. We just hear them stories. But the public deserves to also see and hear stories of when the thing is sweet, when it is going well. I have said publicly on the campaign that I wish a lot more of our young men especially will see the value in having a family and the value in family life, and ensuring that family life is done well. And there's simple home economics. It costs more to mind 3 children in 3 different households, mothered by 3 different women, as opposed to the 3 children were in one household. When in one household, they buy 1 pack of milk, and the entire family uses the 1 pack of milk. When in 3 households, and you're not in any of the 3 households, you have to buy 4. You have to buy for the 3 of them and buy for yourself. And one of the things that we have to look at is how one of the problems we have socially is because we have not spent sufficient time in supporting families and ensuring that families do well. And I am a champion of family values. Certainly. And no, it does not mean that the family that I have is perfect and that we don't have disagreements in the family, or that there aren't things that my wife and I will butt heads on, or we disagree on, or she thinks I took a wrong move on, or I thought she took a wrong move. That is natural and normal in any family. But I am so happy that I got married. If I was doing this as a single man, I probably would have gone crazy by now. My wife is my best friend. We spend time every morning as we roll over and wake each other up to hug up and pray together, and to commit our day to God together. We spend time to do extended worship sometimes as a family. We sing together and so on, and ensure we are able to, to just have that sort of grounding.
Certainly.
Sometimes we bring other family members into the space, other friends into the space. So, to just ensure we keep that sense of sanity where that is concerned. And I'm eternally grateful, and I must express gratitude to all my people from Speyside and Castara and so on. I could tell you, them people finding me to bring down my fish, my fresh fish. So I no longer have to buy fish and I buy fish from a certain place that let's go home and put it down, and by the time I look back after half an hour, the fish spoil. That means the fish ain't fresh. Listen, my people showing up with the fish van. Again, me jacks. Sometimes me jacks coming down and me season. Again, me provision. Right? Imagine I am at the people's ball and a fella from Shelby saying, come outside, I have something in my car for you when I go. Is nice big bunch of silk figure and thing. They're well ripe. If I go to Palatavia and St. Pauline, I mean, I have to prepare to go home and back me shut and stand up all night and clean jacks because they give me the jacks, they give me the fish, again me dolphin and so on from them. When I go there, they just ask me how you want your slice. You want married man or you want a man's slice?
So you're taking the married man now?
I take the married man slices and so on. Right? The point is, and I have to really commend my district that notwithstanding the fact that we can't be as intimate in each other's space as often as we used to. My district still finds a way to take care of me. I talk about the Christian I went about 2 Saturdays ago. When I went there, I left with no less than about 10 boxes. You're talking about food for days, some good food, well cooked on fireside and so on. Everything properly separated so they're not mixed up and so on. And that to me is the spirit of what you call Tobago. That which we experience when we have harvest, that which we experience when somebody in the neighborhood dies and the entire community comes out and pitches in and gives of themselves and donates stuff and help cook and help prepare and so on. That is what Tobago is about. That is what we should be bottling. That is what we are attempting to bottle and to sell to the world. That's what we went to World Trade Market and said to the world, look, come to Tobago because there is no place to fall in love with like Tobago. And that's what we need.
And I mean, we're out of time now,
Oh, yes.
but I just want to give you just a minute to just, address the people of Tobago. We are looking forward to the next year. I mean, we've had, your administration has been through so much this year. There's so much battles that you've fought. But what kind of people expect to see from you, your leadership over the next year?
Well, over the next year, and I want to put my comments in 2 parts. Because I didn't get a chance to really talk about my electoral district as much. So on one end, they can see even more expedited levels of works. So far over the last year, we have seen retaining systems go up in Speyside. So the area where the cement truck knocked away the bridge and went over, that was fixed. Another area where the road was eroding and going into a home being constructed by Mr. Warwick and his partner, fixed. We look at Little Tobago, fixed. We look even at the jetty in Charleville. We have done some work on the landing and cleaning up the jetty, and cruise ships will return from December 2019, Charleville, fixed. We also begin prepping the road. I mean, the rains came and did some damage. We prepped the road at Merchiston as an alternative route, and that would have benefited us if we were able to complete it before the rains, because with the mudslides that came down in Speyside, there's a pileup of traffic there daily as they try to remove that and bench the bank. But if the Merchiston road was completed, then the traffic would not have been affected at all. But that road, we started prepping it. We have to go back and do over some of the work because the rains erased some of the, and eroded some of the works there. We also started prepping at the back of the Pentecostal church, that street extending from the new scheme in Charleville. We have to go back and do some work. The drainage works were completed, but we're looking to pave. We did some work along Longbed. We have to go and complete it. Now, going up Bel Air, and I will tell you, Bel Air Road is one of those projects that was supposed to be done in, that the audit revealed that monies were paid for and no work was done on the Bel Air Road. That's one of the roads there. And a big chunk of Bel Air Road came down on Saturday again. And money is paid for the road to be done and never done. And still has to be done. We have Lucivale Branch Road. We're using concrete to fix that road as we speak. Then when we go to the north side, we finally open up fully the fishing depot. The fisher folk in Castile should receive their keys to their lockers sometime this week so that they could begin to work there. We did some work down by the Baptist Church, down in Depot Road, where we had some drainage issues that we worked on. We basically had to rebuild a portion of the Castara Road. In Palatavere, the fishing depot has actually started, and by the time we get to about June next year, we will have the shell completed, and we move on to the next phase, which will be the outfitting of the building and all of that. So soon the fisher folk won't be in these tiny shacks trying to operate. They will have a proper place to operate from. And the design for that was inspired by the fisher folk themselves, so that the design will allow them to be able to store their equipment, including their gas. Right now in Castaway, they can't store their gas inside because it's air conditioned and so on. Those problems were fixed because we listened to the end users this time around. If you look at Blue Food this year, you will realize that infrastructural works, instead of just coming and put down some crush run, we did drainage works and so on, all around the ground and the area coming down that street. We did some paving. We paved parts going down into Palatavere and did some paving works in Bloody Bay. We have some more to complete. The point is, my district, we have done some work, but expect
a lot more.
But across this island, we have done a lot of good works. We did some landmark things that you were wondering what was happening in this space for the last 21 years. And maybe we had fault for making it look easy, those things that we have done. And certainly we had fault for not singing our own praises often enough and not going and have a TV show to come every week and say, well, we did this week, we did that this week. And we will change that and begin to implement some of those strategies as communication strategies. So the information will always be out there. But I'm saying, Tobago, we can only go up from here. Life happens in a season. And sometimes God has a weird way of shifting us so that we can reprioritize and so that we can extend what all the good works that we are able to do. There is a lot more to be done. And we are going to keep building out this Tobago because we are convinced that Tobago can be that superior island. Tobago can be that example. In this new year, as we go into this new year, I expect you to hold on to your area reps more, and I expect area reps to find ways, including myself, to find ways to be more present in person in districts. We also looking at some landmark areas in this new year, things like education and how do we fix the curriculum issues there, the strategic plan for the island. The CDP 2.0 expired since 2017 and no new one was done. So we're looking to that new strategic plan. We're looking at much stronger advocacy on Tobago autonomy because it will come up again. We are convinced it will come up again in the parliament in the new calendar year. We are also looking at the road works to be done, the alternative roads to be done. We have some areas like Bad Rock that just can't wait anymore. They may have waited 20 years, 40 years for fixes, but at this point we have to find a way and find the money to get it done, notwithstanding we don't have sufficient to do it in the first place. We're looking at in this year how to improve the quantities coming out of Stolly Park, increase the quantities coming out of Stolly Park so that more material is available, and we will apply the necessary pressures legally and otherwise ensure that Stolly Park can export, and so that we can cash in on all the developments happening in Guyana and so on, and be able to earn that foreign revenue, foreign currency revenue of Forex. We also looking at healthcare and moving Roxborough from going to 7 p.m. to going 24 hours and getting to that below. And reopening, fixing up and reopening and modernizing the actual health center operations out on the main road so the hospital can be a hospital fully and all of that. We are also looking at the issue of public security and safety, and for the first time introducing that as a department of the THA, notwithstanding what the THA access or fifth schedule areas are, and national security being a sixth schedule matter. But we believe that internal security must be a matter for the THA, and how we work on that. We are looking in this new year to open up building housing projects. So we're looking at Shervan to get started, Adventure to also get, next phase of Adventure to also get started. People in a few days' time will be able to go to Bill Garden and start to construct. Imagine we inherited a housing area where lands were already distributed for the most part, and the people couldn't build because all the necessary approvals and all of the work with WASA was not completed. We came into office and completed those things. We could see farmers getting roads, access roads to areas they did not before. We did a lot of that over the last year. We even put in lights and electricity in areas not there that help with the predial larceny issue, so people could have camera systems and other security features to treat the predial larceny. Water in column, which we inherited as a problem, already fixed. We already pay WASA the full amount for WASA to run the lines for the farmers in Corlan, for the farmers up in Lamy. The farmers in Lamy should be getting their road soon so that they will be able to access their farms easily and drive out what they produce and so on. So there is a lot to be done, and a lot will be done, a lot more will be done, because the measure of progress is seeing that you have done better this year than we did last year. We're not sitting down and saying, well, we're doing good and that's enough. And I'll end with this story. I remember when I was in Standard 5, and I think I told the story before. Standard 5, I had a Standard 5 teacher called Miss Campbell, Shirley Campbell. She's also my neighbor. Love her thoroughly. And I remember doing practice tests for common entrance. You know those practice tests? I don't know if you did common entrance or C.
I did common entrance.
I don't know how young you are, but I'm a common entrance.
Well, we were in school around the same time.
No, but you were beneath me. So I don't know if you're one of the C babies, but one of the common entrance babies. So you're doing the practice test, which you will do every Friday, especially you do a practice test on a Friday afternoon. So the teacher will deliver the lessons for the week. Fridays, you do a practice test. And you come on Monday morning, you come early for class, you do your corrections and so on. And I'm the only child that passed this practice test in the class. And Miss Shirley sharing Lixman. So I sit down and I fold me and I smile. I rock back and say, yeah, I doing good, I bright, I pass something. And me and pass, I ain't talking about no 50%. I'm talking probably like about 60-something percent, 70-something percent pass, Mark. I think it was about 70-something percent, about 75 or sort of 100. Pass. I say, yeah, man, I'm doing good. After Miss Shirley punished the entire class, she then called me. She said, your turn now. I said, but miss, for what? I'm already up at 75 out of 100. I'm doing good. She said, no. Why settle for good when you have the potential to do better and to do the best? So I received my flogging like everybody else, notwithstanding passing, notwithstanding getting around, I show it's about 75. And I'm saying, yes, this administration, we have received some licks, we have received some criticisms, we have received some praises, some people who have benefited, the people who receive all of those grants and so on. I'm sure they're not saying, you should not give me the grant so you ain't do nothing. Right. They are certainly happy and so on. The people who receive help, the roads got patched and some of the holes you saw that you were passing on and mashing up your car got patched and was getting fixed and so on. They are expressing gratitude. But they are also saying, we know you have the potential to do better. The reason why we voted for you is because we know you will not settle for good. And I could tell you, this team is not settling for good. We are aiming for better and best. We are aiming to even do better than we did in the first year. Your first year, you come into office, you already met the fiscal year started, you met a situation where the regime already committed a significant chunk of your budget. Works had already spent out all the money for the fiscal year and plus more in owing people and so on. And so when I hear people talk nonsense about 300 million spent in last fiscal year on Trinidad contractors, I want to know where that money come from. Because we didn't meet $300 million there. They spent on most. But the point is, you inherit someone else's strategic plan already in work. You inherit someone else's spend patterns already at work. This is actually our first fiscal year with our first budget that will be 100% utilized by this administration. That brings so much more opportunities for things that were just not possible in the first fiscal to be possible in this fiscal. And that's why you're getting your ex gratia. that is why we are also, you're also getting the constituency fund started. All of those things are starting because this is our first fiscal that we are inheriting from scratch. And not only that, I am going to be insisting, even if I take legal recourse, in getting all the monies owed to us by the central government. Right. Because given what we saw happen with the storm and all of those things, we need all of those monies. And I'm saying, and I must apologize to Tobagonians. And I see you jump because I know it's not common for politicians to apologize. Apologize in that if there are people who feel hurt by the upheavals that happen, if there are people who feel hurt that we have decided to go independent of the PDP, I am saying to you, we are sorry over that hurt. It's not the most ideal situation. It's not what we hoped would happen. You will notice how quiet we were while all the toxicity was going on, while there were rants about people and their hair, how they look, and all sort of pettiness, while there were sort of petty rants about who more important than whom and who should just be following whatever the leader says. We endured it all patiently. We stayed quiet through all of it. I could tell you, as the leader of the team, I responded perhaps a grand total of 3 times. I responded immediately after it happened. I responded on a radio interview, and I responded after a new DCS was voted into office. And I avoided any interviews about the matter. I avoided conversating about the matter because I understand that people invested in this. And the reason why we were successful is not because people were giving us big money from Trinidad, and that's why I could rubbish that. We were successful because of guts and heart and soul of people coming together. And one of the things I am saying to you today is that we are moving from Watson Party to the People's Party. And we are saying we want you, the people, to be part of this build-out. We could have easily sat down as a team and decided we're going to form a new party. This is going to be the name. This is going to be the symbol. And we run with that. I can tell you we ain't formed nothing. We ain't even have an idea about any symbol, color, nothing. Because we are waiting on the people to give us our direction. We will be bringing them back around the table to give us our direction as to how they will want us to progress on the political front. Right. In terms of what that new entity will look like and feel like. And I will be ensuring that in the future, there will be no individual who could sit down and put up as the title on Facebook, owner of a political party, because the people will own it. It won't be no one man owning anything. It'll be the people's party, the people owning it. And that's why you have to be a part of it. That's on the political front. Finally, on the government front, I want to before I leave, indicate that in addition to the Mandate Mondays, which we did every quarter, save and except for the quarter when it coincided with the budget in June, in addition to that, we are starting a series of town hall meetings where every month we will be going out as a team to hear from communities, because we don't want a situation where the communities have things that cannot be communicated to us or isn't communicated to us well. We're starting on the 15th, on the evening of the 15th, and we're starting in that Lekoto Golden Lane district. We're starting there, then we go east, come back central, and that kind of thing. All across the island. And so we're starting, I think, this month of December as we roll into the new year. So that's an additional opportunity by which members of communities can come and discuss with us some of the issues being raised in communities. One of the good things that we have already done is that in excess of 20 of the village councils have been reformed. For donkey years, the village councils and gain elections. Over 20 have had elections in under a year, being reformed. And let me tell you how good the work is. Assisting even me with my work. The village, I was a secretary of Speyside Village Council until sometime about a month or 2 months ago, and in under a month, that village council was able to get lights back all the lights that weren't working in the district, get Tiantec to put back on the lights. Might seem simple, might seem like a big deal, but it's that kind of community government and governance structure that we are engendering and pushing more of as we decentralize power from the center out to communities. So all of those are areas and fixes that have happened. We will broadcast them out, we will publish it so you get to see all of the things.
Yes.
A lot of which I could not speak about because of time.
And we are definitely out of time.
We are definitely out of time, but again, we remain grateful to Tobago for this opportunity. We remain grateful for this opportunity to not just lead, but to serve, and we will continue to serve to the best of our ability. God will help us.
Great. I want to thank you so much, Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, for being on with us. You spent a lot of time with us. It was a long run, but we really appreciate it. And congratulations on making it this far so far. We certainly look forward to what's to come in the next few years. I mean, it's unprecedented times. Again, I think these past 2 years was everything about it was unprecedented, and you continue to be unprecedented in this role. So yes, we are looking forward to see what happens. All right, viewers, so this is how we're going to wrap the show this morning. It's been a wonderful time being here with you and bringing you just some of the views from Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, getting into some of those issues that have been around. Tune into the morning show tomorrow because we continue to bring you some of the best updates ever in Tobago, of course, from Tobago Updates. All right, viewers, have a good day and see you soon.
Yeah. Hey. Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.